rules project. And this is a national dialogue. I'm sure it hasn't happened in a while as far as the Office of the Special Prosecutor is concerned. We have focused on a lot of the mundane and have not taken our time to get into the real facts as they exist about that office. So we are going to get the opportunity in a long while now to get real factual situation reports about the office, and then we will have the opportunity to also deliberate on the same. My name is Samson Ladi Ayanini, and I'm excited to be your servant. Call me and send me whatever you want me to do for you here this morning. I will assist. We pray to God for a successful program. Amen. So without much ado, we will start right away, and we'd like to call up Dr. Kojo Pumpunia Asante of the CDD to welcome us and set the context for this engagement. Please take your seats.
Good morning, and thank you very much, Samson. Very welcome to everyone to this very important event. I recall that I think a year after the OSP was set up, we did a one-year assessment of the OSP then. Someday I'll tell you all the drama behind that one, but and maybe in a way, the OSP, once you mention OSP, you have to remember to say drama, because that has been the experience as far as I have been involved with the OSP all these years. But first, let me acknowledge the Special Prosecutor. Let me also acknowledge Apostle Nyamiche, Chairman of the Pentecost Church, Reverend Degwe Kodeo Co-Chair, Dr. Adam Salome, CDD Director of Research, Mr. Kweku Obeng of the GIZ, and our very distinguished invited guests, stakeholders in promoting integrity and accountability in Ghana, the media, all our also invited guests and friends who are also joining us online. You are all very welcome to today's program. My job here is to just say welcome, but also to try to set the context. And I have been very deliberate in what I wanted to capture for the context, because I hope that in our conversation about the OSP, and also in light of all the conversations about whether we should grow the OSP, or we should kill it, or we should, reform it, and all of that stuff, we would have some really clear context as to why we are doing this, why we invested in this office, and so on. So let me give you a bit of context for the OSP. For me, the establishment of the OSP in 2018 marked a significant step forward in our effort to reform the country's anti-corruption institutional architecture. That development was a follow-up to an earlier turn in our anti-corruption institutional reform when in 2010 the Serious Fraud Office became the Economic and Organized Crime Office. Which was basically an acknowledgement that crime had become complex. You had fraud and other white-collar crimes. We needed specialist institutions to deal with that. This was also around the same time that we set up the Financial Intelligence Center, which was also responding to the whole issue of money laundering, terrorism financing, and so on and so forth. So it was responding to the changing threats from criminal gangs, from financial crime dynamics, particularly money laundering, terrorist financing. These institutional advances did not, however, address a pending challenge that was identified in the Africa Peer Review Mechanism report in 2004 on the independence of the Attorney General to investigate and prosecute corruption by politically exposed persons, including members of the AG's own government. And I mentioned the APRM because my institution, CDD-Ghana, was actually the institution that undertook the political governance component or assessment of the APRM. So we were very much active in that process, and I in particular was very much involved in that assessment as well. The recommendation at the time was for the separation of the AG and Minister of Justice functions, for the AG to have more independence. I recall, I've forgotten which of the elections, but this was a big theme of a lot of the political parties, separating the AG from the Ministry of Justice, you know. But that was all focused on how do you make the AG more independent, particularly in prosecuting corruption. The current situation where the AG oversees prosecution of PEPs have led to a focus of corruption on post-regime accountability, whereby the incumbent regime prosecution efforts are directed towards holding the previous regime accountable, with a few exceptions. And you can go back to, from Quality Grain, Ghana at 50 prosecutions, to, you know, I mean, every regime, once you have a change in government, that's where you get the focus. A few exceptions will be Abuga Pele and Asebit in the Jida case. I think who else? Malamisa case. But generally, that challenge that we have had over the years in trying to use the AG's office to prosecute politically exposed persons when it comes to corruption, we have really failed. The demand for a more independent prosecutorial function for dealing with corruption evolved into a commitment to establish an independent public prosecutor office. And this was then captured under the National Anti-Corruption Action Plan, NACAP 2015 to 2025, which of course you know has expired, and a new one is going to be adopted very soon. And this was adopted by Parliament and launched by President Mahama then in 2015. In 2016, the MPP manifesto promised the establishment of the OSP to address this challenge of prosecuting PEPs. The NDC, interestingly, during that time, proposed the appointment of a semi-autonomous director of public prosecutions under the AG to ensure independence. The OSP was established in 2018 with the clear understanding that actions needed to be taken, because I mean, it was very clear that, you know, in spite of some of the challenges that we're identifying with establishing the OSP, that there was a sense that something needed to be done. And that at any point in time, when a constitutional reform process was instituted, it will be used to firmly entrench the OSP in the Constitution. And I must acknowledge that CDD-Ghana, with Transparency International Ghana, GACC, played an active role in supporting Parliament to draft the legislation. And my very good friend, Caroline Lamte, who led the DFID group then, were very, very instrumental in the drafting of the OSP law. Unlike any other institution, the OSP, since its inception, has been attacked right from its birth and through its existence. Questions and challenges to its constitutionality in the courts continue. The scope of its powers have been contested, where its laws are more progressive, even though its laws are more progressive than even the Yoko law. And I must say that because what was first drafted, when the first draft that came for the OSP law, really modeled or mimicked the Yoko law. But a lot of work was done to try to make even the OSP law even more progressive, particularly in balancing the rights of citizens in the law. And I'm sure Mr. Kisie Japan was saying it's part of the reason he's having problems. So we've seen many efforts to undermine it, to weaken it. In a way, it is reminiscent of the phase that Shraj went through in the 2000s. And if you recall the Anani case, and eventually pronouncing that Shraj could not investigate conflict of interest cases without a complainant, right? And in a way, that interpretation was extended that Shraj cannot investigate corruption without a complainant, right? But interestingly and curiously, we have not seen the same sustained attack on the Financial Intelligence Center, on the IOCO, or the police CID, even though their work is not dissimilar to the OSP. So what exactly is the problem? It says one thing: our rhetoric as a country and our practice are far apart. Every election, parties insist that corruption prosecution is biased and the function must be made independent, and then they turn around and undermine their own interventions. The debate as to whether we should have the function of prosecuting corruption, especially by PEPs, handled by an independent person other than the AG, for me, has been settled after 22 years. For me, it's settled. We've gone round and round and round and round, and we are very clear that we need an independent office. Returning to the pre-2018 arrangement is to send the entire anti-corruption architecture 2 decades back. Moreover, developments around the world clearly affirms the evolution of our adopted anti-corruption institutional framework to be on the right path. More and more states are recognizing that they need specialized agencies, to confront. And now if you begin to think of really the advances in technology and so on and so forth, you really do need expertise and specialized expertise to tackle corruption. So the task ahead is to finish what we started. I'm hoping that this is food for thought. We have a full assessment, very detailed assessment, so I'm sure we can get into this conversation. But I just wanted to whet your appetite a little bit in terms of what really is at the center of our gathering today. So again, welcome to today's event, and we look forward to a very lively debate and discussion about the Office of the Special Prosecutor. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Kojo Pumpuni Asante, Director, Public Engagement and Partnerships at the CDD-Ghana. We'll take a few remarks, and I opened on the notes that I will wish that our distinguished speakers will follow suit. Brevity. Because we want to get to the presentations, to get to know the meat, what exactly the Office of Special Prosecutor has been up to, what we have to be concerned about, what we have to celebrate, and then get to the panel discussion, which I suppose will be very incisive. So without much ado, once again, please let's welcome Kweku Obeng, Component Manager, Strengthening Anti-Corruption from the GIZ. Thank you, Kweku. Please. We're sitting on to my right, left.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Samson. All protocol observed. I would like to indulge all of us to pause for a moment and imagine. Imagine rushing a loved one to a hospital, hope in your heart, only to hear the words, no beds, because you have to bribe to get a bed. Imagine holding a newborn child, not with joy alone, but with questions shaped by the scars of environmental destruction from illegal mining, because certain people turn a blind eye to illegal mining. Imagine working tirelessly, yet still struggling to afford quality education because the cost is too high and beyond your reach. How would we feel? What would we say? Who would we blame? These are not distant possibilities. These are potential realities if our efforts to combat corruption are not strengthened. Corruption is often quantified in financial losses, persecutions, and global rankings. Yet beyond these metrics, it represents a profound erosion of public trust. It raises fundamental questions. The Office of the Special Prosecutor, OSP, though relatively new, has emerged as a significant pillar in Ghana's anti-corruption architecture. Established in response to growing demands for accountability, the office has faced intense scrutiny from Parliament, civil society, and the public regarding its independence and relevance. Nevertheless, it has demonstrated resilience and remains increasingly focused on executing its mandate. The OSP has investigated cases, numerous cases, secured convictions, from the last count about 7, and helped prevent substantial financial losses. Its public education initiatives have reached a wide audience, while its risk assessments have contributed to averting potential harmful transactions. These achievements are highly commendable. However, public expectations remain high. Ghanaians seek clear, decisive outcomes, particularly the successful prosecution of high-profile individuals and the recovery of misappropriation of resources. And this statement is something I normally hear from my good friend, Mr. Samuel Dakon, as he would rightly say. In fact, today when I was wearing my suit, I had him in mind because he normally wears suits, and I would ever wear African print, but today the tables have turned. These outcomes are essential to sustain public confidence. Further insights into these efforts will be shared during our dialogue, national dialogue today. On behalf of the Participation, Accountability, Integrity for a Resilient Democracy, PED, the program, which is commissioned by the German Federal Ministry of Economic Cooperation and Development, BMZ, co-financed by the European Union and the Swiss State Secretariat of Economic Affairs, SECO, implemented by GIZ in partnership with the Ministry of Finance, I express our appreciation for this platform, which provides an opportunity to reflect on the establishment and evolution of one of Ghana's key anti-corruption institutions. I also want to commend CDD-Ghana for its continued partnership and dedication in advancing anti-corruption efforts in Ghana, as well as all stakeholders present here for your commitment to building a better Ghana. As we engage in today's dialogue, several persistent questions will arise, and this will be part of the solution Ghana needs in the fight against corruption. As I end, normally I end with a story, but my New Year resolution this year is to end with a poem. So when I'm not doing development cooperation, I like to write poems. So a very short poem titled The Office of the Special Prosecutor. In a land we love, where justice must stand, there arises a voice to cleanse the land. Not by might, not by fear, but by truth that makes all things clear. The Office of the Special Prosecutor leads the way, fighting corruption day by day. From hidden deals to stolen gain, they rise to break corruption's chain. When others fear, they dare to act, with law, with strength, with truth intact, to seek, to find, to bring to light the wrongs which are concealed in the darkest night. Yet no institution stands above tests. Perfection belongs to none at best. So when it falters, we must speak, not to tear down, but to make it strong and just and not weak. For truth demands both voices and sides, to praise what is right and correct what is not right. Constructive hearts, courageous and fair, will build a system we all must share. But they cannot stand alone. This fight is ours. It must be owned. For every silence and every excuse gives corruption space and use. So speak, report, refuse the wrong. Stand for justice, firm and strong. Support the work, uphold the call. For when justice rises, it lifts us all. Let truth prevail. Let courage grow. Let every Ghanaian rise and know a better nation we can be if we stand for truth and keep it free. Support the OSP, but hold it true. For stronger systems depend on me and you. Thank you.
Thank you, Kweku Obeng Latte, for that poem. So In a country where at the end of the fourth quarter of 2023, you could count as many as 747 FM stations, and most of them commercial. You can imagine the kind of situation that the OSP faced. Yes, 747 FM stations. Of course, only 550 are operational. I've not counted television. He said that not the office, the occupants of the office, said on February 28, 2025, what we are used to and know, as said by the Greek tragedy man, that the first truth, the first casualty, truth is the first casualty in war. He said truth is the first casualty in any criminal inquiry. Let's welcome Mr. Kisi Ejabeng, the Special Prosecutor, for his brief remarks.
Good morning. It's not my program, but welcome. It's not my program because the Office of the Special Prosecutor had no hand in this, and it is for a good cause, so that it is from a deep place of sincerity and neutrality that this dialogue is undertaken. And when we were informed about it, we opened our hearts that it should be done. How many institutions can stand this scrutiny? It is the Office of the Special Prosecutor. More than 70% of the populace want an independent institution to fight corruption, separate from the Attorney General. And more than 50%, and with this, I take pride in it, the majority of Ghanaians trust the Office of the Special Prosecutor than any other institution to fight corruption. And with this, my job is done. However, I have started counting down my days to when I depart as the Special Prosecutor. When I become the former Special Prosecutor, I want to look back and say, civil society forged this office, and civil society preserved it. It is your handiwork. Do not let it die. You recall what happened in 2025. Incidentally, it was our best year of performance. At the same time, it was our worst year of existential troubles. Why should Kisi and a few officers of the Office of the Special Prosecutor be the ones always news for politicians? And that is why civil society should keep it afloat. I am not known to be diplomatic. I speak what occurs to me. The attempt to scrap the Office of the Special Prosecutor last year is not dead. And this is a charge I'm giving to civil society. It is not dead. It is live. But we should not depend on the goodness of the president to say, withdraw it from Parliament. Rather, we should build this institution for the ages, an institution which stands the test of time. I was approached in respect of how to reform, and a lot of the talk I heard was revolving around me. And I told these well-meaning people that do not make proposals because of my nature. Some may see me as good, some may see me as evil. But do not turn legal provisions around my traits and characteristics. And the same way I'm saying, do not let this office's existence depend on the fact that the president wants it to operate, as we saw in December 2025. Secure it, bound it up, board it up well. And now we have a glorious opportunity with the Constitution review process. Let it be stamped in it. And we are gratified that the committee, the Constitution Review Committee, put such a proposal in it. Let it be well-founded in it. Let it be well-clad, so that the next special prosecutor will not spend so much of his time fighting for survival of the office, fighting for survival of his position. It has been most unfair. It has not been for the best as far as our fight against corruption is concerned. But of course, some would want that situation to prevail. Because if your attention is sideswiped from the work sometimes, and you are fighting for existential battles, it weakens you in how you work. Civil society, ladies and gentlemen, I would seek your leave to depart after these remarks, so that you can still go ahead with the neutrality which you bounded this program. I do not want my presence to join the discussions, but my able lieutenants are here. They will take all in good faith. And after this intestine examination, we would see where we got things wrong, where we need to improve, and where we need to do better. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kisi Ejabeng. And as I said earlier, as he spoke, I could imagine, we all know that in the last year, they came and faced a lot of storms. So if you have as many as 550 radio stations in operation, and you have as many as almost 130 television stations for a small country like yours, your electronic media, you are more saturated than even South Africa. You small country, how many people? And we are not even adding new media. So you can imagine, every day, every minute, you are in the eye of the storm. I don't know how they manage it, but I think they have done well. Please, a round of applause for him again. If I have as many as 700 traditional media on me every morning as a topic to talk about, I'm not sure I can even survive it mentally. So let's get to the point where we get to appreciate the work that has been done by independent consultants and Professor Baole of the University of Ghana Business School as far as the OSP is concerned. So we are going to take a presentation of assessment by the consultants. We will begin with the independent consultants right here in the auditorium with us. And she we are in a privileged position because she had the opportunity to chair the board of the Office of Special Prosecutor at one time, and she has been in the anti-corruption fight for over 2 decades, most of which we have known her to lead the Ghana Integrity Initiative, now Transparency International Ghana. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mrs. Linda Ofori-Kwafo.
Thank you very much, Samson. And good morning, everyone. Permit me to stand on existing protocols already established. As Samson rightly said, my boss is on the line. Is Prof on the line? Vera? Okay, so my boss is Prof. He is the boss, and I'm the boss lady. Okay, so we did this work together. Currently, I work with Adam Smith International, implementing a project in Ghana called Tackling Serious and Organized Crime Program in Ghana. My presence here today has nothing to do with that. I want to establish this before I continue. As rightly said, I am an independent consultant on this, but because I've been with the OSP in the past, CDD wanted to ensure that my biases are not captured or influenced, does not influence this in any way. So Prof, the big Prof from the University of Ghana, was attached to myself, and we did this work together, and I enjoyed working with him. He's really a great professor, and I'm presenting on his behalf. At some point you come in, I'll try to be very fast with the presentation because we don't have too much time on our hands. So then we would be able to have a great discussion. It's very important also for me to state that today's gathering is also a validation of some of the things we are hearing, we are going to discuss here. And before we leave, your inputs would be summarized and added to the assessment, one way or the other. Okay, so Vera, if the slides can start rolling. I have some few slides that I will just want to roll quickly. Take it from there. So then, oh, look at me. So let's take a quick survey. Those of us here gathered here, do you think corruption is a problem in Ghana? If it's not, I think we just move out of this place and just show by hand if you believe or you think corruption is. Some hands are down. Okay. Those who are of the view that corruption remains a significant challenge in Ghana, I want to see your hands. So majority of us actually agree that corruption is a big issue so far as the country is concerned. For that matter, this conversation can continue. We are also very familiar with some surveys or researches that is done year in, year out, so far as corruption is concerned. You know, the Corruption Perception Index, annually launched by the Transparency International, by Mrs. Mary Ada and her team, and you know how Ghana has been performing. If you are a father or a mother in this room, and your child is Ghana, and Ghana keeps scoring below 50%, stagnating between 42 to 43 over a period of time, will you be happy with your child? Will you be happy with your child? No. So obviously Ghana has not been performing well. On a scale of 0 to 100, Ghana has not scored beyond 48, best score ever in 2014. Afrobarometer survey, just the CPI, the Afrobarometer survey, round 10, actually also pointed to the fact when a question was posed, so Afrobarometer does not only capture corruption, that's all other things, but on the subject of corruption, in 2024, 73.9 in responding to the question is in your opinion, over the past year, has the level of corruption in this country increased, decreased, stayed the same? 73.9 of the Ghanaians believe that corruption had increased between 2023 and 2024. We all know the case of the independent special prosecutor. A lot has been done by governments, all state non-state agencies as well, development partners contributing, civil society organizations, importantly, and citizens contributing to the fight against corruption. One of the persistent solutions offered to address corruption in Ghana prior to the operationalization of the OSP in 2018 was that Ghana needed an independent prosecutorial anti-corruption office. So we did an independent institution with prosecutorial powers. What Attorney General is constitutionally mandated in Article 88 for, there was a practical challenge, and you and I, it's common knowledge, unless of course this subject is new to you. But if not, there was a common challenge, a practical challenge that the Attorney General had difficulty in prosecuting people, ministers, and that are his or her peers, because they were all always appointed by the president. And you know, this statement you see on the slide right now is captured from the Constitution Review Commission of 2011. Captures this clearly, that the challenge that the Attorney General had in prosecuting. That is why we needed an independent organization with prosecutorial mandate. The popular prescription was to a separate Attorney General from the Minister of Justice. Governments in and out have never been, we're not able to do so, and still we still have Attorney General function still linked to the Minister of Justice function. The government of the day then preferred to create this new organization or specialized agency, and then in 2027, we had the office of 2017, sorry, we had the Office of Special Prosecutor Act 959, being passed into law. If I remember rightly, I always say it was a birthday gift to me, but we have to check again so that I don't make a mistake. It was passed on 14 November 2017. 14 November is my birthday. Can you imagine? After so many years of fighting corruption, they gave me a law. That is why OSP is on my heart, right? Yes, that's if I'm right. And on 2nd January or so, the president, in 2018, the president assented to the law. And then we had the first special prosecutor in the person of Mr. Martin Amedu, appointed around 20-something of February 2018. So the office was, importantly, the office was given or lent some of the constitutional powers of the Attorney General to prosecute corruption and corruption-related offenses. So if you look at this on the screen, you see when we had the Martin Amedu era, at a period when he resigned, we had no special prosecutor. We had a deputy, but then we had no special prosecutor. Then we have the Kisi Jabin era. And 2023, from 2018 to 2023, we had a mass recruitment of all the people that the office needed to help it execute its objects. Stated in Section 2, its functions, Section 3, and its mandate, Section 4 of Act 959. Ladies and gentlemen, let me just zoom into the approach, what CDD wanted us to do. So the UR actually tells us the terms, but in summary, actually we're trying to look at, has the office delivered on its objects for its establishment? Has the office made any impact in the fight against corruption? So far as their establishment for the past 8 years is concerned, what approach did we use? So we had options, but we decided to use a mixed approach, employing both qualitative and quantitative methods, but with a heavier leaning towards the qualitative. Remind you, this is not a research, it's a reflection paper. So don't take your pen and start marking how many people were interviewed and engaged, no place. We decided to give the citizens opportunity to contribute to whatever we decided to do. Data was collected from both primary and secondary sources between the period November 2025 and February 2026. And you know that's in 2025, November 2025 to February 2026. This paper sets out to examine whether the OSP is delivering on its mandates and the rationale for its establishment. It adopts the mixed approach, I've already said, the period of the data collection. So by way of presentation outline, we have the relevance of the legal and institutional framework, performance of the OSP, citizens' perception, SWOT analysis, insights from similar anti-corruption agencies. At that stage, I know Professor Bawule will do the presentation. Then we'll come and conclude the recommendations. I'll run very fast so that we save some time. We decided to rely on the Jakarta principles, Jakarta Statement of Principles for Anti-Corruption Agencies. Hereafter, I will refer to it as the Jakarta Principles as a metric to assess the OSP's legal and institutional framework. So get me, we didn't use it for everything, but that for the legal and institutional framework. It has 16 guidelines in all for anti-corruption agencies, developed some years back actually, but then the stakeholders that developed it were former anti-corruption agencies head, UNODC, UNDP, so many of them gathering in Indonesia, Jakarta, to actually think through the challenges they are faced as far as the fight against corruption is concerned, and then decided to adapt this to help promote and strengthen the independence and effectiveness of anti-corruption agencies around the world. It is a global principle, 16 in all. In the main paper that we'll finalize and publish, we've written about all the 16, but for the sake of time, for this presentation, I am going to concentrate only on 5 of them. So the 16 guidelines are mandate, immunity, ethical conduct, permanence, financial autonomy, remuneration, appointment, external accountability, authority over human resources, continuity, public reporting, adequate and reliable resources, removal, collaboration, internal accountability, public communication, and engagement. I also want to say that in all this conversation, I never had a personal discussion with the OSP, I had a personal discussion with anybody. It's a team, Prof and myself, supported by others, but we try to stay away so that. But then now that they are here, we have some few questions, we'll go back to them for them to validate for us as well, and then we can capture it into the report. So you can see I'm going to concentrate on permanence, appointment, removal, adequate and reliable resources, public communication, and engagement, and then score the OSP on these. So permanence, according to the principle of permanence of the Jakarta Statements of Principles, anti-corruption agencies shall, in accordance with the basic legal principles of their countries, be established by proper and stable legal frameworks such as the Constitution or a special law to ensure continuity of the anti-corruption agency. The OSP is not a constitutional body. This common knowledge. Unlike the Office of the Attorney General and Ministry of Justice, the SHRAJ, the police, and all those things, it was created by an Act of Parliament, aforementioned Act 959. Therefore, OSP will cease to exist if Act 959 is repealed, the scare that we had last year. Bear in mind, the principle said either by the Constitution or by a special law to ensure continuity. OSP was established by a law, a special law. But then in this country, anything is possible. There was a bill in Parliament last year aiming to repeal the OSP. So then, if you want it to have permanence, to enable us deal with the canker of corruption, that is the significant challenge the country faces by way of development, then we should ensure the OSP is here for life. So by this, the OSP is only partially compliant with this principle. Appointments. And when we were trying to get the OSP Acts in place, civil society actually debated, organized roundtable discussions, fought very hard. We wished that we could have had a competitive process by which we would have selected a special prosecutor because of the independence nature that we were aspiring. But then politicians will have their way, and they said they will still want to go by nomination, appointment, parliamentary approval, the same way we've been doing things in this country. So we were not successful on that front. By this, ASC says shall be appointed through a process that ensures his or her apolitical stance, impartiality, neutrality, integrity, and competence. The current arrangement where the executive begins the process and ends the appointment does not quite guarantee impartiality, since president could appoint persons whom they, in their mind, perceive that they could control. Although the two special prosecutors Ghana has had so far have demonstrated their oh God, this word, I've practiced you several times in the house, unsusceptibility to political control, the apolitical stance required to perform this job might be an issue in future. We might not have a Martin Amedu, we may not have a Kisi Ejaben. In future, we might have Mr. Solomon Esiedu. Mr. Solomon Esiedu could be easily, what? If that is anybody's real name, forgive me. So please, we need to do something about the appointments if we really want to have. So then by appointment and by the Jakarta principles, procedure is therefore only partially compliant to the global principles that have been put in place to support the work of independent anti-corruption agencies. Removal. So by removal, you know, we have actually outlined in the law the nice procedure, the difficulty, and then you have an issue, you do A, B, C, D, set up a committee to make, all those things have been done. But from recent experience, anybody, Ghana has a record of being able to remove a chief justice. And let me say this. I have young men as children, I have only men. And one of them said, he couldn't imagine it, that the chief justice could be removed. I was surprised when I heard it. I smiled and I passed by. I said, you are growing up. You are in a country called Ghana. Anything is possible. So according to section 13.5 of the OSP, the special prosecutor shall be in office for 7 years. That we secured. Government come and go, SP can still be there, without the opportunity for a term renewal. But the deputy we know has a term renewal for 2 terms, 5 years per each term. Section 15.5 of the Act details the processes for the removal of the prosecutor, similar to the process for removal of the Chief Justice. So on this, Act is therefore fully compliant, ladies and gentlemen, fully compliant according to the principle, but in reality, my heart still beats. Anything is possible. Adequate, reliable resource. We know. We've been comparing them to other organizations that have been in existence and look at how much money we gave them. No. We forgot that this is a new agency. It was now being created, now being established. So many things were needed. But still we compare. So the former Martin Amedu complained, the current OSP has actually acknowledged the fact that resources might have been better than the past, but still there is a challenge. So far as the principle is concerned, we have not fully realized that for the OSP. We do not have adequate and reliable resources. Public communication and engagement. And so why is the OSP always talking, They've not even checked the Act and what the Act mandates the OSP to do. Attorney General decides to talk, why is the Attorney General talking? Every day we complain. The OSP's Act actually says that Section 3.3 requires the OSP to report twice annually on its operation. the OSP has been publishing half-yearly reports, and same should be published also on the website of the OSP. And this actually aligns with what the Jakarta Principle states, that ACA shall communicate and engage with the public regularly in order to ensure public confidence in its independence, fairness, and effectiveness. This OSP has done religiously from Martin Amedu's era till date. The OSP has been available also on radio programs, discussions, and all that. OSP is therefore compliant so far as this principle is concerned. So I've actually limited this to the critical bits of, for us to understand in terms of establishment, legislation, and all that, the legal framework, 5 of the 16 principles, the details are in the report. When it's finally published, we'll get to know. So on permanence, removal, and whatever, on a scale of 0 being non-compliant, 0.5 partially compliant, 1 fully compliant. On permanence, OSP is partially compliant. On appointment, OSP is partially compliant. On removal, OSP is fully compliant, but with, in quotes, on adequate and adequate resources, partially compliant. On public communication, the special prosecutor is fully compliant. All this information is available for everybody to find out on the OSP website everywhere. Get to know all that you've been doing so far these matters are concerned. As a summary, OSP is fully compliant 2 out of 5 and partially compliant on the remaining 3 of the critical Jakarta principles that is intended to strengthen, embolden, and make an anti-corruption agency very effective. Now we move on to the other part of this report. I must say that if you look at the section 2 of the OSP Act, it talks about an office that is mandated or has the responsibility to investigate corruption and corruption-related offense. It's supposed to recover the proceeds of crime from corruption and corruption-related offense, and then it's supposed to also prevent corruption from happening. That's which is stated in section 2 of the OSP Act. Actually tells us the 4 main things the SP is supposed to do. Investigation, prosecution. It's also supposed to prosecute, yes, corruption-related offenses. Investigation, prosecution, asset recovery, and the prevention of corruption. So you see OSP collaborating with CSOs to organize events, to educate people, to prevent corruption, and we always have a matter with that. So the investigations being conducted over the period, investigations is both a process and an end in itself. The OSP investigations in the Airbus scandal, for instance, brought finality, so a process and an end to that issue. The office has investigated some top officials. How many institutions have done so? We had the president, former president, then candidate Mahama issue was investigated. Mr. Kenofurata, Cecilia Dapa, Mustafa Hamid, Charles Bisu, Ajeni Boateng, among others, taking on such heavy weights for full investigation has helped the cause of the OSP. This is the qualitative, but ladies and gentlemen, on the quantitative side, how do we determine if the numbers are impressive or poor? We could try to compare with other investigative agencies, but with different mandates. Will this be fair? We could also try to compare with institutions with similar mandates in other countries. But given that some of these institutions have subnational offices all over, whereas national offices are yet to be established with more personnel, would this also be fair? It seems to me the only fair way to assess this is to compare the OSP's own figures year on from the table. The OSP seems to be investigating more cases each year. Cases with significant updates, no significant updates. Every year when they actually publish, they say that they don't have any update for us so far as these are concerned. We picked it from the SP's own data available. On cases, prosecution or prosecuted, these are the figures and the recoveries that have been made as well. Also going the way of plea bargaining in some instances. I don't want to delve so much because this is public information. on asset recovery, which is also a mandate of the SP earlier mentioned, under Section 2 of the Act, the OSP has been able to recover some monies as well. Some loss averted. OSP has also captured some money, so preventing, in my view, this should actually be captured under prevention of corruption, so because they prevented it, but currently the OSP captures the loss averted under asset recovery. Prevention of corruption, the OSP has done a lot. Prevention, they did a corruption risk assessment at some point. Anti-corruption education is always ongoing. They do outreach, and they also have something they call Youth Against Corruption Initiative. And all these actually contribute to the prevention mechanisms that they have put in place as their law mandates them to do. And one of the quotes that I saw that was quite interesting was from Tema International School, where said, at first the topic of corruption scene, students were really, really enlightened when they had an encounter to engage the special prosecutor. We move on to some citizens that we engaged. Ladies and gentlemen, citizens are the biggest stakeholders of the OSP, as they are the funders and beneficiaries of the OSP's work. It's therefore important to obtain their feedback on the office work. The paper undertook an online survey in the month of February 2026 on relevant themes among citizens across the country. We surveyed 412 people. The male proportion of the student respondents was 53.9, while the females were made up 46.1. The age bracket, we have 36 to 60-year age group made up most respondents, followed by the 18 to 35, making up the second level of respondents, and the above 60 age group also responded as well. Now these questions were posed to them. Ghana needs an independent anti-corruption office that the government cannot control. From the graph, the combined strongly agree and agree respondents combines and up to 94%. This is good news. People admitting the fact that Ghana really need an independent anti-corruption, because all the organizations that we had in the past have not been able to deal with the issue, not because they are not effective, not because whatever. Corruption is a big, gargantuan problem that we have to tackle with all the seriousness that it requires. Then institutions trusted to fight corruption. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm happy to inform you that each respondent could actually choose as many, more than one institution. The OSP led the vote with 55.2%, followed by Shraj, then Yoku, and then Attorney General. 15% said they did not trust any institution. They don't trust any institution, that you can even bring institution from heaven, they wouldn't trust them to be able to deal with the subject. Confidence rating in reporting corruption to the OSP. How confident are you in reporting corruption to the Office of the Special Prosecutor? The very confident plus confident responses make up 47.4. A significant 26 is neither confident nor lacking confidence. This is very important note for the Special Prosecutor's Office. The impact of the OSP's work. The work of the Office of the Special Prosecutor is making government officials more careful about engaging in corruption. A combined 55.1 of the respondents strongly agree, and agree responses indicated that the OSP is having an effect. Specifically, it is making government officials more careful about engaging in corruption. And almost a quarter, 24.1 of the respondents, hold the view that the OSP is not affecting the anti-corruption landscape. This is what the people that we engaged said. You are here, you are part of citizens, because we knew there was going to be a validation meeting. After that, tell us what you also think, whether the OSP is making an impact or not. Yes. level of support to the OSP. Is the OSP doing a good work and should be supported to do even better? Ladies and gentlemen, a combined 58.4% of the respondents expressed appreciation for the work of the OSP. A little more than a fifth of respondents were neutral about the question, while 18.7% of respondents disagreed, some disagreeing strongly with the assertion that OSP is doing a good work and should be supported better. Generally, the OSP has the support of majority of citizens. However, the sizable proportion of citizens who are non-committal about the questions posed reveal that the institution is yet to convince a significant number of Ghanaians on the OSP's relevance and its effectiveness. I move on quickly to a SWOT analysis that we did as well, based on all the information that we gathered. Based on all the information that we gathered, by way of strength, OSP has a clear mandate. OSP's objectives very well stated. So I said earlier on, the mandates, the objects of the office is in section 2, the function is section 4, and the mandate of the office is section 2, 3, and 4. Yes. So it has a clear mandate, it has independence, it has great leadership, popular support. In terms of weaknesses, it has no permanence. It could be wiped away any day, any time. And resource constraints tends to be one of the biggest challenges of the office. By way of opportunity, ladies and gentlemen, by way of weakness as well, the OSP lacks, okay, so I've said that one. Opportunity. The emerging trend in asset recovery and civil recovery is an opportunity for the OSP, ladies and gentlemen, to make its work much easier. Civil forfeiture, especially non-conviction-based forfeiture, allows anti-corruption agencies to seize assets linked to crime without a criminal conviction. Another useful tool is the reverse burden of proof. In this scenario, the prosecutor's job is to link the properties to the accused and then require the accused to explain the source of their property. I'm told I don't have too much time, so I will move on to other things. By way of threats, it's very important for me to mention. The OSP is an institution under siege. There are perennial threats to remove its head. December 2025 has passed. There have been 6 or 7 petitions to remove the current special prosecutor. The second threat has been petitions to declare the office's independent procedural powers as unconstitutional. It happens, we hear in the news, and there have been attempts to always say that, oh, they are not a constitutional body, so what are they up to? Another perennial threat is the de facto political interference. If you remember rightly, Mr. Martin Abitu said that his work, he was being politically, his work, how do I put it? I'm on radio. So political interference, explain it your own way. The OSP is, in its current form, being an institution established by Parliament, faces existential threats. The recent draft repeal bill and the conversation around it in Parliament for scrapping the offices is worth noting. Others are talking about the fact that you have so much resources already, and we should be able to reduce the resources. At this juncture, I would pause, and then we would take some insights from other anti-corruption agencies from Professor Bawuli. But even before he comes, I think I've done well. I've talked, sir. So we take Professor Bawuli's submission, and I'll come back to do some 2 minutes of conclusions. So, Prof.
Can I be heard? Hello, can I be heard? All right, great. Thank you, Samson. And I will do that. I will try and do that. I will summarize what we have put together. Thank you for the opportunity. Just to acknowledge the chairman of my church, Apostle Eric Nyamiche. Papa, I agree to you. So we also, as part of the job, we had to look at what exists in other jurisdictions. And as you can see, we took a quick scan of a couple of them, notably anti-corruption agencies in the UK, in South Africa, in Kenya. We did this under the broad themes of structure of the mandate that they are given, and we try to look at the entire spectrum of the functions of the OSP: mandate, investigation, prosecution, prevention, and accountability. In terms of the mandates, in terms of the mandate structure, I hope I'm going forward. I'm not going backwards. Okay, yeah, okay. Yeah, so in terms of the mandate design of the OSP, we see that it's either that the anti-corruption agency has a mandate which is whole in itself. In other words, it takes the entire spectrum of anti-corruption, or it is split. In our OSP, we have the entire spectrum from investigation right to prevention, which gives it a certain level of control. And this, if you were to compare with the CDD-Fraud Office of the UK, which also has an integrated function, like the Sierra Leonean Anti-Corruption Agency, which also has an integrated mandate, it helps it to be able to be in full control over the processes from beginning to end. In other areas, you will find, for example, in Kenya, you will find split mandate. The agency has some mandate, some other agency has mandate for other parts of the work, which creates problems. And so for our OSP, this is a good sign, because then largely it has capacity to begin an investigation and finish it without relying on other things. But that mandate, we are told, also can lead to an overexertion and overextension. Sometimes it makes the institution, quote, too powerful. And here we say too powerful, being mindful of our constitutional rights as individuals to be heard and not to be dealt with in a manner that does not respect our rights. And Samson is a lawyer, so this is extremely important. We also looked at independence, which a lawyer has dealt with very clearly. The independence here, we looked at particularly the ability of the anti-corruption agency to select cases that it wants to focus on, to initiate charges, and to compel cooperation, and to ensure that this is something that they have choice over. In some jurisdictions, the choices of the cases can be really a matter of contestation. What matter you decide to investigate or not investigate can be political. So our anti-corruption agency, the OSP, has the capacity to do that. But we also looked at the structural issues and exposure of the OSP, and I think one of the biggest challenge that we think exists in our case is the fact that the OSP, as we understand, and the lawyers can explain this better, has to sort of does not kind of have the overall mandate of prosecution, and the conversation around whether or not the functions actually conflict with the functions of the Attorney General is something that the lawyers can better explain. So we looked at that. In the case of we see that if there is the Ghana's structural exposure, as we said, can actually choke the institution, and this can lead to veto. So if there's something that the OSP cannot do because it has to refer to the Attorney General, then the issue of case ownership, interagency, dependency, and collaboration can create problems. The case in Kenya is it actually signifies this. The UK Serious Fraud Office actually has oversight over the entire process, and they also have a strong institutional oversight, but not political interference. So in this case, we want to look at the Ghanaian case as something that we especially with political interference, as a major consideration. Just so that I am able to summarize this, in terms of the operational capacity and specialization, our OSP has, because it has the mandate to do the entire hawk of the job, our OSP has must have a lot of expertise and specialties within it to be able to do that. It should be able to do financial forensics, must be able to do digital investigation, asset tracing and recovery, and all of that. Now, if you have an OSP that is not properly built up, then there's a problem. In other jurisdictions, these expertise are readily available to be used, and for the agency not to rely on other investigative agencies, in which case it has full control over what it can do or not do. It's also about the prosecution and court pipeline dynamics. Usually the speed at which investigation can go, the speed at which the special prosecutor is able to determine the speed of cases in court, and all of that has implications. Of course, that actually weakens the OSP's capacity to speed up processes, and the issue of going back and forth in courts can have significant implications. So if OSP were to sequence its investigative and its operational activity from beginning to end, and certain part of it is such that they do not have control over, it will be delays. And Ghanaians always want the issues to be as quick as possible. And so that's something that we think should be looked at also. Asset recovery, our OSP has asset recovery powers. As it is in many other jurisdictions, there are asset recovery powers. The core differences here is that in other jurisdictions, this is very easy to do because there's a primary capacity within the institutions, and again, they can initiate processes much more quickly than our OSP. Let me try, and I'm just trying to juggle through a bit of confusion. Please forgive me. If you look at the comparative prosecution lessons, you will see that, for example, in Kenya, prosecutor control actually shapes outcomes, and if the courts is not able to fast track the processes because of legal gymnastics, then there's a problem. So this is something that also we need to look at. The other area of interest is the issue of prevention and the implication of prevention of corruption. And this usually would be the most important part of the job of the OSP, because as Linda said, prevention helps to avoid the occurrence of this in the first place. And if there is a way to prevent, and these have to be preemptive to ensure that the OSP does not allow the things to happen before we go chasing, then a lot more must happen. And in many places, preventive anti-corruption activities are much more pronounced in some other jurisdictions. For example, in the UK, where the agencies can go much more faster. Where there are distributed accountability, and here the distributed accountability has to be the fact that one case is split across multiple agencies, and therefore accounting for a particular case and its completeness does not depend entirely on a particular agency. In our case, we have the complete picture, and so it's possible for us to be able to speed up a bit of the processes and for her to hold the OSP completely accountable, only subject to the processes in law courts. I think I want to stop here. The report is quite detailed, and I would urge that we take a cue from it and perhaps get a lot more. And during the conversations of the discussion, I could throw a little more light. Thank you so much. I'm sorry for this sort of disjointed presentation. Thank you.
We've been able to make his presentation. Some feedback by way of recommendations, and based on all that has been presented so far, the recommendations are that, look at me, I'm really growing old. Okay, so sole prosecutorial power to deal, authority, sorry, to deal with corruption. Financial autonomy is obviously a recommendation. Unexplained wealth order, and then capacity enhancement. So then if you're actually carrying out all these fulfillments of investigations, prosecution, prevention, and all that, then OSP should be well capacitated. I don't know whether now they are. I'm sure most of us know they are here, and they can actually confirm whether they are fully capacitated or not. And then that which sweets my heart is the Independent Anti-Corruption and Ethics Commission that was proposed by the Constitutional Review Commission. And ladies and gentlemen, I think it needs some just some 2 minutes on that. The possible significance of this proposal by the Constitution Review Committee deserves some comment. On 19 January 2025, President Mahama set up the 8-member committee to review Ghana's 1992 Constitution. This committee, led by Professor Henry Kwesi Prempeh, presented its final report to the President somewhere in December. The committee inter alia proposed appropriate amendment to Article 883, 884, 218B, and 218E to take away the authority, the Attorney General's authority to prosecute corruption and corruption-related offenses, entrust corruption investigation powers, and vest all authority for prosecuting corruption in a proposed independent anti-corruption ethics committee. The committee further proposes, in this regard, that the Anti-Corruption Ethics Commission take away or merge with the legislatively established Office of Special Prosecutor to create a one-stop shop for all corruption and corruption-related prosecutions. The implication of this recommendation is that the OSP will become the proposed Anti-Corruption and Ethics Commission as a constitutional commission, such as the SHRAJ and the Electoral Commission. This body will have permanence. This body will have more mandates. It will be able to carry out the full gamut of anti-corruption, investigation, prosecution, asset recovery, and prevention that they are doing now, but they need more power, more capacity to be able to carry out this mandate effectively. Ladies and gentlemen, by way of conclusion, the establishment of the OSP addressed the genuine gap in Ghana's governance architecture. Although its early years were very challenging, the OSP could be more effective, meaning the OSP can't be better than they are now if granted additional critical tools and made permanent. Winning the fight against corruption is possible, but it requires more investment and collaboration from all of us. Ladies and gentlemen, on this note, we are very grateful for CDD for giving us this opportunity. Anti-corruption is what I eat. In my current job, we had a meeting somewhere. A very top government official said, I know your face. You've been fighting corruption. Now you are fighting serious and organized crime. Can you imagine? I have moved on, but I'm still here. I love being here, and thanks for the opportunity. You have the freedom to criticize the job and add on so I can actually make it a better work. That said, thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Linda Ofori-Kwafu and Professor Justice Bowley. Thanks for the job done. Now, I suppose this is also a very important part of the dialogue that you've been waiting for, where you would also have the opportunity to contribute to the discussion by way of questions or also contributions. Having seen the report, so I'd like to quickly welcome the following upstage for the panel discussion. The panel discussion will start with a 10-minute presentation collectively from our friends in Uganda and Kenya. They'll give us 5 minutes each. Sheila Masindi, Executive Director, Transparency International, Kenya, and Peter Wandara, Executive Director, Transparency International, Uganda. Let's welcome the Executive Director, Transparency International, Ghana, Mary Awalana Ada. Let's also welcome Linda Ofori-Kwafo back here, Professor Justice Bawele. Bawele is joining us via Zoom. Samuel Apia Dako, Director, Strategy Communications of the OSP, and Edem Senanu, Chair of the African Union Advisory Board Against Corruption. Please, a round of applause for all of them. Like I said, we are beginning with a 5-minute presentation each, starting with Sheila Masindi of TI Kenya.
Join you on this auspicious occasion where you share the findings of this important work that you have undertaken. It's really nice to see Linda after many years, and nice to see a number of familiar faces there as well. I wish I was there in person. I think for Kenya, just straight on to the presentation, and I'll not even attempt a PowerPoint at this point because you've only given me 5 minutes, and I think Prof has already alluded to some of the structure and the functioning of our anti-corruption infrastructure, in the sense that it is we have investigations that are done by the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, that's the Anti-Corruption Authority. Some are done by the police, under the Director of Criminal Investigations. And then we have the prosecutions that are conducted by the Office of the Director of Public Prosecution. So there are split roles there. It has also presented a big challenge. One would argue that, well, it's good to separate the mandates, also for accountability, for objectivity. But then I think in the bigger scope of things, for us, what we've seen many a time is challenges, because we have also seen the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission sometimes fight with the Director of Criminal Investigations over who's investigating what corruption case. Sometimes they are both investigating a case, and sometimes you find that the political class likes that kind of lack of clarity or double roles, so that then when things come to a head, they may know which agency to influence to pull out or withdraw a case. And many times they will withdraw the investigation that is weaker. And many times it will be that of the Directorate of Criminal Investigations, because that's under the National Police Service. The Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission is a statutory body established under an act, the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission Act, and which is pursuant to Article 79 of our Constitution. So it is well protected. I'd say many times independent, and many times it will fight out for cases that it has worked so hard to investigate. And we've seen that even more recently, especially in the last 4 years, where there's been a lot of attempts to withdraw some of the corruption cases which are touching on some of our political connected individuals, political elites, or even some of the politicians. And many times you find that these cases are withdrawn, and the next thing, the person is being presented for public office. So we have kind of drawn a pattern between attempts and even successes in withdrawing cases by the Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions. And then the next thing, the people are appointed. It means that there is a lot of political influence and breach into the role of the Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions. We, as civil society in Kenya, led by Transparency International Kenya, have actually gone to court to challenge some of the decisions that have been made by the Director of Public Prosecutions to withdraw some of the cases, especially where we had the trial magistrates or the judges actually say that they had to acquit someone because they had to acquit as a suspect because the prosecutor worked so hard, to defend the suspected criminal, and so they had no choice but to make a judgment of acquittal. So in some of those cases, we've had to follow them up in court and actually sue the independent prosecutors individually, and who try to have them held individually culpable and liable for some of the cases, because many times many of these people who have been let go will come back and claim remedies from the taxpayers. So we've had a number of challenges. Mary asked me to talk about successes, but I can tell you, Ghana, first of all, you're doing better than us in the Corruption Perception Index. I heard you say that you're in the 40s in terms of the scores. I think you're 40. You scored 43. We scored 30, and we've never gone beyond 33. So where you have challenges, we have sometimes more challenges in regard to the fight against corruption. But we're trying because we also, I think, have what we call a very strong legal and constitutional framework. The only problem has been in the implementation, particularly in trying to curtail some of these institutions. But we believe that institutions like the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, which was established to provide oversight into issues of ethics, integrity, and accountability in regard to state operations and public affairs, has actually really tried, despite some of the limitations that it has faced. Many of the limitations touch on human resources. It still has limited staff, qualifications of the personnel, when you look at also the technical capacity, but also our commission has really forged highly beneficial partnerships with some very, very expert institutions, which have really supported investigations into corruption, like the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime, we have a national crimes agency. I've had you talk about the UK Serious Fraud Office. They've also been quite instrumental in terms of giving our entities support. We have entities from the US, FBI, and so on, which our commission has also worked with to try and strengthen its investigations. We have had challenges in regard to financial resources, and it meant that they have to prioritize the cases that they deal with. It means that many of the complaints that sometimes are presented to the Anti-Corruption Commission are not dealt with, and they have to prioritize on some of the high impact, cases, high value in terms of the ones which are you're touching on a lot of money in terms of when you look at the money in question, as being suspected of having been stolen or misappropriated or abused and so on. I think the other aspect I want to just touch on before I conclude is, because I've talked so much about the weaknesses of the Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions, and we have investigations, but then many times, sometimes you don't have concurrence between the Ethics and Anti-Corruption and the Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions, because the ODPP, the prosecutor, has to concur with the findings of the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission in its review of the case before it then presents this to court. This means that sometimes many cases are not presented to court because there has to be that concurrence, and that's where sometimes our argument has been: can we have one institution dealing with both the investigations and the prosecution? So currently, prosecution is a preserve of the Director of Public Prosecutions. It institutes and undertakes all the criminal proceedings against individuals and entities who are suspected to have, who have committed corruption. But also, I want to just mention something, that it has also been involved in investigation, because even though its role is prosecution, ancillary to this role are powers to require other agencies, such as the Anti-Corruption Commission and the National Police Service Commission, to investigate corruption cases. And this means that there needs to be a very close coordination between these agencies. And in our own observation and advice in terms of moving forward, how do we move forward if these institutions continue to hold these separate mandates, is that there must be a multi-agency approach, so that these institutions are working, and we work toward, prosecution and the investigators working very closely together, such that by the time the case is concluded, we have 100% concurrence, if possible, on the corruption cases, and less public fights, because some of the fights have actually been very, very public in court, in press conferences, in parliament, and so on, and it has not been good in terms of restoring public confidence in terms of our perception and our confidence in the capacity and ability of our anti-corruption institutions, the prosecutor as well, to be able to deal with corruption cases. I think I want to stop there. And just because I think I've presented what our current architecture is, some of the challenges and some of the proposals that we have made to be able to see better success in the fight against corruption, particularly in regards to investigation and prosecution of corruption cases.
Thank you very much for those insights. Now let's hear the situation in Uganda.
I presume it's good morning in Ghana. It's good afternoon in Kampala. Yeah, thanks a lot for giving me this opportunity to share with you some of the things that are pertaining in the anti-corruption sphere in Uganda. The main agency that oversees issues of anti-corruption in Uganda is called the Inspectorate of Government, and this one is headed by the Inspector General of Government. But having said that, we have quite a number of parallel institutions. The last time I counted, there were about 14 or so who are also dealing with issues around corruption. In terms of the legal framework, we have quite a robust legal framework. There are more than 18 laws that can be used against any of the corrupt, anyone who is alleged to be corrupt. Yeah, having said that, the main function of the Inspectorate of Government, first of all, they deal with issues around corruption. Second function, they act as the ombudsman of the country. That's checking excesses of government officials and so on. Then they also are in charge of the Leadership Code Act, which pertains to monitoring the wealth of the key leaders. We have a schedule which shows which leaders are supposed to be monitored, who are supposed to declare their wealth, and so they're in charge of monitoring all that. Yeah, so like what the rest are doing, they don't differ much. Of course, they work around issues of investigation, and they also prosecute. Our Inspectorate of Government has the powers and the mandate to prosecute. They can investigate a case and prosecute it to its logical conclusion. They carry out prevention, deterrence of corruption. They do carry out a lot of education of the masses, sensitization. They do also some research. They do research. They also provide a reporting platform. Anyone can report on their various platforms, be it on social media or just a phone call away. Yeah, having said that, I was requested to give light on the engagement of civil society with the Inspectorate of Government. What I would say is that we do have a cordial relationship in that we do a number of things together. We do have joint activities with the Inspectorate of Government. We do carry out joint work during the Anti-Corruption Week. We have joint community sensitizations and so on. Then we also, of course, fall back to them in case as for society we need backup during capacity building in the fight against corruption. We recognize that as civil society, we might not have the technical know-how. So sometimes we do call on the Inspectorate of Government to come over and give us backup. And they've done this on several occasions, and it has been quite successful. Then also, among other things that we do with them are issues around policy formulation. We have joined hands with the Inspectorate of Government to push for amendment of certain laws. I can give an example of the amendment to the anti-corruption law, which had not provided for declaration of wealth of leaders, spouses, and children, but we joined hands with them, and the law was amended. So right now, yeah, the whole family has to declare their wealth. Then also leadership code tribunal. We took a long time without having that tribunal in place. So a lot of leaders would escape prosecution because there was no tribunal in place. A number of examples are given. Some of them are quite prominent people in parliament, prominent people in government. What would happen when they are taken for prosecution? When they are sentenced, they would appeal and quote the law. The law says it's the tribunal that's supposed to pass judgment on them. Yeah, so we have also carried out joint monitoring exercise under what they call the TAC, that's the Transparency, Accountability, and Anti-Corruption Framework. This carries out monitoring of services, especially at the lower levels. So, of course, civil society is closer to the masses, or so we claim, but I think it's true. So they usually come and we do that joint monitoring together. Yeah, and of course, the number of areas we also work with them, like research, etc. Maybe the most recent engagement we have had with the Inspectorate of Government was just last week. In fact, when Mary contacted me, I was in that engagement with the Inspectorate of Government, and we're looking at the CPI. Our CPI score in Uganda is quite low, it's at 25. And we're looking at ways of how to ensure that this CPI improves. So the meeting brought together Transparency International Uganda, Inspectorate of Government, and other key players like the Directorate of Ethics and Integrity, the procurement people. And so it was quite a big event. That shows how close we are in our collaboration between the Inspectorate of Government and civil society. Yeah, and also we do share information. We feed into their reporting platform. Us as civil society do not have the mandate to prosecute. We do not have the mandate to investigate. That's the work of government. So when we get information, it's passed on to the Inspectorate of Government through their reporting platforms, through reports, we do research, and so we have passed it over to them. Yeah, so in a nutshell, that's about our collaboration with government. Of course, it is not without challenges. There are challenges. The office, the one with the Inspectorate of Government, the IGG, is a political appointee. Yeah, so that comes with a lot of political baggage. So sometimes their hands are tied. They can't prosecute some cases, or it seems that they don't have the clout. Of course, there's that big fish, small fish syndrome, whereby it appears they only go for the small fish and the big fish escape. Then, of course, yeah, the issues of resources. Yeah.
Front. So, ladies and
Okay, thanks a
gentlemen,
lot.
I'm going to begin with my guest right here, the panelist right here, to begin the discussion as far as the work that has been done by the independent consultants is concerned. So please stay in. This is a time that you have the opportunity to also contribute, so don't go anywhere. I'd like to begin with Mary. So I'm beginning from a point of a recollection, remembering how your organization helping Manasseh Azoria, we need to do investigations as far as Ejenim Boating Ejeyi is concerned, the former boss of the PPA, Public Procurement Authority. In 2020, I suppose all of us know what happened as far as he was concerned. He was put in charge of that institution, and as we understood by the investigations from Shraj, with the support from Martin Amidu's office at the Office of Special Prosecutor, when he took over office, his accounts held just about 40,000 Ghana cedis. By the time he was busted on the contracts for sale, his accounts held in excess of 45 million Ghana cedis. As we understand, he is still standing trial after President Akufo-Addo sacked him, but the money that we needed to stop, the OSP stopped it briefly, but that money, he's managed to take all of it out of his bank account. So what's the point? I'm using that to ask a question about the performance of the office. What's your verdict?
Thank you very much, Samson, and thank you to CDD for giving us this opportunity. I believe the verdict has been very clear from my former boss and Prof. Baoli when it comes to the functionality, judging them per the various functions or their mandate. For me, if I'm speaking as an ordinary citizen, which I am here to do, I believe that the OSP has done a good job. They may not have done everything we wish them to, but then per the remits within which they are operating, they have tried their best. Remember, I say so because one, the fight against corruption is a hidden activity. Corruption itself is a hidden activity and engaged in by either the people are very much interested in it or one of the parties is compelled to be part of the process. So it's hidden. And unless and until it comes out, it becomes a very difficult one for any particular institution to say they are going to work on it to achieve any results. Again, we have an OSP Act which also grants, like we talked about, independence, grants the OSP some independence, but then the Attorney General still holds on to his powers to decide if a certain case must go on or not. And you, the lawyers, who say nolli prosequa. That's another. Then we see the office when it comes to the judicial sector as well. I'm not saying it's a capacity issue, but then it goes to courts, and at the end of the day, things are thrown out. Either the court process excessively delays, and you, the lawyers, also encourage it by dragging the processes to go on with the appeals, the very unnecessary ones sometimes, to curtail the process. And so they are doing their best, but they could have done more. If we are ranking them, perhaps because this study has not also ranked, you realize that from the Jakarta principles, they have indicated 0.5s and 1s somewhere. So we will go with that, but to also say that there's a lot more to be done. But if it must be done, then we need to do some things that have not been done, including even strengthening our legislation so that when they go to court, they will not be thrown out on issues around criminality, whether the issue is criminal, whether the issue merits, and if they have the evidence. Again, I believe that from this point forward, now that the OSP is well capacitated, the next time there is an assessment, we will then be able to tell them rightly if they are doing well. But for now, my opinion is that they are doing well. Perhaps 60 over 100% of the times.
All right, that's some rather very great mark. Some in the audience may say, you are a very generous, teacher. So, Adam Sonano, let me come to you now. And the reference I began with, at the time, even though the office had been set up, as the presentation showed, it had not been tooled up. It was not until 2023 when it was tooled up. It had to take on cases that were already, things that already happened. Around in 20, and ladies and gentlemen, sometimes when Linda asked us to put our hands up if we felt corruption was a big issue and some were reluctant, if you want to get the picture a lot more clearly, the last 5 years, with the exception of 2020 up to 2024, the last 5 years, the Auditor General's annual reports revealed that almost 80 billion Ghana cedis had been stolen or misused by the public officers you entrust to work for you. This is not Fourth Estate going to do a story for you to come and counter. This is the Auditor General's report. 5 years up to 2024, almost 80 billion. We are looking for big push, which is supposed to transform our country. And we are committing how much? 110 billion thereabouts. So we can fund it without borrowing. In 2013, the Auditor General's report captured 2 contracts and 1 individual as responsible for over 1.1 billion US dollars, including Woyome. You remember that create, loot, and share? 2 years later, we went to the IMF. Do you all remember how much we went for? Less than how much? 1 billion US dollars. Meanwhile, here, only 2 contracts, 1 individual had stolen in excess of 1.1 billion US dollars. The office was supposed to catch all these thieves and jail them. As we speak, it hasn't jailed anybody. That's why the public says they don't see anything. What do you say?
Well, thank you. My inclination is to, first of all, go along with Mary and say that this office has performed above average, because as somebody who does institutional assessment, it's very difficult to be building whilst under attack and not have the resources to do so and still survive. For this office to still be there, late last year I met a young man who, 11 years ago, when we first started the citizens movement against corruption, it was under a Mahama regime, and we were doing protests against corruption. He was one of the young student leaders who was with me in the streets when we went asking for the Independence Square to do a vigil against corruption. Somehow he's ended up in the OSP. So I met him somewhere. I said, "Oh, how are you?" And he said, "Oh, I'm working for OSP." I said, "How are you?" He said, "Oh, the spirit is going." And there's a sense in which we don't know how our actions affect everybody. Somebody who was very vocal, but say, "Oh, the spirit is going." What is the point I'm making? I think that even though this was started in 2018 and we're in 2026, if staff were recruited in the last quarter of 2023, to all extents and purposes, capacity building would have started after that. Capacity building means that you now define operational systems, you now establish procedures, you consolidate the practices. That's taking you 6 months to 1 year. From where I sit, in a year and a half, not more than 2 years, the OSP has had what? It now has 67 cases, 7 cases completed. I think they've done very well. If the public is complaining because the indicators the public is using is that you must have jailed so many high-profile people, we are missing the point. there's so much this institution has achieved just by existing and preventing, you know, because persons so minor say, hey, OSP is there. In fact, the trajectory our politicians have taken is specifically because they are afraid. Let's not begin to think that, oh, it's because the OSP.
What trajectory are you talking about?
Oh, the one, especially when they said we must repeal the law and scrap it. I was on a Joy FM program where they say, is it the institution or is the man? And I said, it's neither the institution or the man. The politicians were taking us down a road we've been already. So I think that in terms of the data, in fact, that's one of my asks. How can the team ensure that the impact is pulled out more strongly? So you've talked about the 67 cases, you've talked about the 7 that are complete, you've talked about the recoveries. How can we summarize that and so that we control the narrative? Because I was shocked when they were speaking that they have not even finished any case. OSP had already finished cases. When they said they had recovered nothing, OSP had recovered money. And yet, because the politicians have the platforms, and you had, do you say 700 or 500 FM stations?
700.
Can you imagine?
That is radio and TV combined.
All repeating the same message from the politician. We have to scrap the office. It has done nothing. You know, I think we need to define the indicators for measuring the impact better. And I'm hoping that this work, when you end, there'll be some key indicators, ones that we can market to the public so they understand. When we are measuring the OSP, it's not the same. Also, we recognize that when they finish, they must go to court. I keep repeating that, okay, as chair of the AUABC, last year, I was part of their launch of their strategic plan on anti-corruption. And in that meeting, they talked about how they had 12 specialized anti-corruption courts. Not one, 12. Because they realized that these kind of cases, you need to take them to a place where the judges, those who are arguing, they understand the threshold of evidence. They are not going to use the kind of threshold you use in criminal cases, because to go and find all the evidence you want is not the same thing. So there's a sense in which we have not worked to create the other systems that support entities like the OSP to be able to get to court, finish their work, and demonstrate that they are doing a lot of work for Ghana. So my take is that the OSP is doing well under the conditions. It can do better. We need to support it. I like the data. I think the data is very encouraging. When 58% say, let's help them. 55 say, we have confidence in them. 77 say, we need independent organization. I think that Ghanaians are speaking.
So, to Samedako, there are those who say, we used to hear of you a lot. You were almost in our faces all the time. And there were people who hated that and felt you were talking without doing. Now, the complaint is you are just too quiet. Have you succumbed?
Thank you very much. Before I answer your question, there are a few clarifications I would like to make. And one of the problems that OSP has always faced is enough opportunity to be able to speak. Like as you said, there are too many voices against the OSP, and yet we don't get a lot of time to be able to explain. Madam Mary made certain remarks, and I'd like to clarify. She was using particular language that often we hear in the media all the time, but they are not true. And sometimes I don't know how we even want to judge the OSP, whether we are judging the entire OSP or we are breaking it into two. So Ajenim Boateng Ejay is a case that was done under the former special prosecutor. Now, under the law, and these are the things when you say people don't want to pay attention, especially journalists, and it makes it very difficult because they don't want to pay attention to the facts, and they want to report what they've heard from politicians. So under our rules, when you seize money or freeze the money of a suspect, it's a suspect because the person is not yet before a court. You have 1 year within which to bring a charge. When I seize your vehicles, your houses and all that, I have 1 year within which I'm supposed to charge you. Now, before the 1 year could expire, the former special prosecutor had resigned. And there was no special prosecutor at the time. Somebody said there was a deputy. A deputy has a certain amount of days or months to act, and it ceases. So the office was headless. Now, the law says that if you have seized my property, and within 1 year you don't bring a charge, I have the right to go to court and get it unfrozen. So there was a transition where the new special prosecutor had not been sworn into office, but his name had been mentioned. He was going to go through vetting. So within the period where there was a vacuum is when the suspect went to court to say that, well, they seized my thing, it's been more than a year, and I have not been charged, so release it to me. And that's how come the monies were released. There were backroom things that I don't want to talk about, because in Ghana, when you try to be more transparent, it is then used against you. So some of the journalists might have published these stories all because we gave it to the journalists to publish. They didn't get it from anywhere. A lot of the journalists that go around say they've done is us who give it to them, because sometimes you don't want to publicly say something. But before the SP was sworn in, he had noticed this vacuum and had hinted to some. And when the SP says it, then they take me and say, you went here, you went there. But the SP had gone even as far as to FIC to say that, can you use your powers to continue to freeze this thing, because I'm seeing a vacuum and the guy could take his money. And yes, it was gone. But we are
FIC is a financial intelligence center,
yeah, but we're not
which has a view of all your money and how it goes around.
But we're not going to cry over spilled milk. What matters is that the case is firmly before the court. And as I speak to you, we are calling about 7 witnesses, and we are done with 4 witnesses. It's left with about 3. Then we'll be closing our case. And it doesn't mean that the money is lost forever, because when we are able to produce sufficient evidence and the court agrees with us and finds him guilty, then we're going to go and trace the money, because monies don't fly. And that's about it. Then there's another one too that I said that our cases have been thrown out, and it's the same thing. They bundle it around in the media, and the media just flew with it without questioning anything.
Okay.
Well, again, just another. OSP cases have not been thrown out. There's only one case that the OSP did not get a conviction, which is the Kumasi Ejosu Jabin MC nominee. But that in itself cannot be seen to be an OSP problem. It's a Ghanaian problem. You have done all that you could with video evidence and everything. The judge tells you, in this case, it's like people don't even follow it. The judge was transferred the day of judgment. And it took more than 7 months before the judge came in to deliver judgment. And the judge says that, well, it's not money meant to bribe people. It's money for transport. And this is who we are. Anytime you arrest these vote buying into, they tell you it's for transport. It's for transport. And if your judges are bought into it and say it's for transport, because the amount of money doesn't even exceed more than 6,000 or so. And sometimes I feel like things work on judges as well, because look at this. The minimum punishment a judge can give you in Ghana when OSP charges you is 12 years. So I'm thinking a judge is saying 6,000 cedis, this guy 12 years. And some people have said that if you take the continent, Ghana has the highest punishment for corruption. Nigeria, Kenya, South Africa is between 5 and 10. So I can understand why people like to fight the OSP, because the minimum you get is 12 years, irrespective of the amount. I don't know if you get it. So,
right.
And then there's another one I gave you, I don't want to do. And then there was this Cecilia, the PAM matter, they said it was thrown out. It wasn't thrown out. OSP had finished its investigation. And somebody said, why did you do it when you knew it was not within your remit? My sister, my brothers, you will not know whether it's in your remit or not. Financial investigations on the face of it looks like corruption. But we went into it and we noticed that it was difficult. And because we don't have unexplained water, that we couldn't go to court to go. These countries that people praise, Nigeria, Kenya, and the rest, they have what we call unexplained
Recording
water.
in
Nigeria
progress.
uses it a lot.
Okay.
Which is that, I know. Well, I'll finish this one. It's very important if you help me. Which is that if your lawful income does not match your assets, then the burden will shift to you, because we will prove that these are your lawful income, and you couldn't have owned these assets. Then you have to explain. So this is where maybe I have to put, and then to answer your question, which when I was employed at OSP in 2022, I asked the SP. I said that are Ghanaians going to give you 3 years for you to establish the office before they start asking you to produce results? Or we have to produce results right now? Because there was nothing. There was nothing. Some of you, they think that everything was at OSP. Even as we speak to you, sometimes we don't want to say some of the things. We don't have a forensic lab. We don't have an interrogation room. We don't have so many things. It is the EU and GIs that are now building for us a world-class forensic lab, a world-class interrogation room. There are so many things that were not provided. Empty pavilion.
All right.
And yet, at the same time, we're being expected to deliver.
I need you to pause here.
I told you that there's a lot,
no,
but
yeah,
I'll end it here.
I understand.
I'll end it here.
Because as a lawyer also, and who is very familiar with your laws, I come across people who misinterpret, who have completely wrong notions. They say things that don't exist in the law, for example. Even right now, I've heard comments which I don't want to intervene because I know the law and it's directly opposite, all right? I just want you to know that none of the panelists so far had done more than 3 minutes, but you spoke almost 9 minutes. That's fine. So now let me come to Linda. Let me come to Linda. So you had the privilege to be the first chair of the OSP's board, a 9-member board of institutional representation, with you going there representing, anti-graft CSOs. How important is the board in oversighting the OSP to achieve the results it needs to? Do you know for how long it hasn't had a board?
Thank you very much. As if Samson was in my head, I was going to talk about the issue of collaboration. As I heard Samuel speak, and all the challenges that he was talking about, and the fact that not everything is corruption. And so sometimes OSP's mandate says corruption and corruption-related offenses. Some of the things that we in Ghana perceive to be corruption might not necessarily fall under their mandate. But then, if there is enough collaboration, adequate collaboration, working together by the other agencies, that should help us address the issue. Collaboration is one of the biggest challenges so far as the fight against corruption is concerned. Fight against any kind of crime is concerned. So if you look at the nature of the OSP board, we have all the other state agencies with the mandate to fight some level of crime being represented there. We have the FIC that he made mention of, the Financial Intelligence Center. We have the Economic and Organized Crime. We have civil society representation. We have the Auditor General's Office, Attorney General's Office. The mandate is for the SP to seek the board's advice on certain matters. The SP is supposed to operate independently without any kind of influence, not even from the Attorney General's Office, even though it's actually existing on the authority of the Attorney General based on Article 884 of the Constitution. But then it does not have the power to influence their work. So then, if the SP says, I want A, B, C, D, and then all the representation on the board can't help to deal with the issue, why not? But the OSP had not had the board since the last time we left office. And I hope the politicians are listening. Attorney General nomination, you have to do it, and it has to be as early as tomorrow. The OSP needs a board to help policy formulation, to help the organization to work effectively, and then also to help the SP provide the necessary advice when the SP comes and says, I need advice on A, B, C, D matters. Governments, politicians, Attorney General, Mr. President, the OSP needs a board. Journalists publish this, the OSP needs a board as quickly as possible.
So, Adam, you sit in a very privileged place. The whole of the Africa Union's anti-corruption advisory body. What for you is the impact of the non-existence of a board for how long now?
Anti-corruption agency that deals with corruption. And that independence includes the resourcing. It includes all the structures that will allow it to perform. And so, I mean, these are things where all of us can quietly see that there is an agenda. And for the work that we are doing here, I mean, it's come over years. You don't get at 959 by sleeping and waking up the next day. It took a lot of collaboration and collective effort. Those of us in civil society and including media should be interested in ensuring that this institution continues to thrive. And I like the recommendation that let's embed it in the Constitution. We need that. That's the best practice. That's the international position. It's in the ANCAC, it's in the AUCPCC, that these institutions should be independent. They should have the law enforcement, prosecutorial capacity. They should have the resourcing they need. And these are elements that, as at the moment, it is only the OSP that can do that. IOCO cannot play that role. The assumption that these institutions, because one of the key indicators is it should be exempt, excluded from executive influence. IOCO cannot.
I have a follow-up question on that for you. Because of where you sit, that there has not been a board, but the money it needs to work has been there. And that's the people's concern.
No, the money it needs has not been there.
Has received a lot in budgetary allocation and has very little to show for.
I think you want to ask the OSP whether they have received what they needed. You see, don't forget that these are the formative...
My point is that they don't need a board to receive the money. They receive the money regardless of there not being a board.
No, I don't think that they are getting all the resources they need in the first instance. In the second instance, resources does not allow you to take strategic decisions. From the policy perspective, there are decisions that you can take where, according to the law, the management team can take it. There are other decisions without the board. You cannot go down that road. So if there are strategic things they need to do, OSP cannot move forward because the board does not exist. So money by itself will not resolve the problem. But I'm saying that the OSP has not received the resourcing, the full resourcing it needs to be fully established up to this point. So let's not confuse that. Even, I mean, there are times where, there are months where I know the SP is hot. Some tell them the truth. Sometimes I don't think your salary is clear. Sometimes you are going around in circles. They have challenges. So please, let's not underrate the challenges that some of these institutions face.
Mary, are we making excuses for the OSP?
I believe so. On this one, perhaps the question we should be asking should be to the OSP. Do they need a board? Because even in civil society, I ask that question because we want to embed the OSP in the Constitution. And most of the constitutional creatures do not have governing boards. So perhaps the lack of a board also then aids the OSP in facilitating their work. I'm being curious to ask. Perhaps Sami should tell us, do they want a board? And also I ask that because when you read what the board is supposed to do, as Linda indicated, they are advising the SP. And in the initial stages, they had the responsibility to also develop protocols, code of conducts, and others for the SP, which they have done. So perhaps the OSP is currently in a comfortable situation where they don't need a board to work. Unless, of course, they advise us differently.
Among the roles that the functions of the board, you've mentioned some.
Yes.
They will set policies to guide the OSP, ensure the office performs its functions effectively, ensure it performs its functions effectively. So if we accuse them of some inefficiency, Can we trace that partly to the board's absence? Advice on recruitment of senior officers, develop and monitor code of conduct, promote cooperation between the OSP and other investigative bodies. There have been TEF wars, and there's a need for a board with the clout to bring in what needs to be done. But so I'm coming to this very final one, even though it's not the last of their responsibilities. Approve the annual budget and strategic plan.
That is true, but unfortunately, the people who need it have not spoken to that. So that's why I'm thinking perhaps they haven't perhaps pushed. Because if the SPI, I remember in those days when Linda met this person, it was at a meeting and they went on. They created the board after a very short while. And so I am very sure that in the OSP's office or the SP himself, if he has consulted with government, that we need a board to sanction this. But without the board,
Linda wants to say something briefly before I bring in Samedako. As far as Edem is concerned, his verdict is clear that this is political marginalization going on.
So the OSP needs a board. Mary, the OSP needs a board because it is in the acts that establish the OSP. We have not changed anything in the acts, so far as I'm concerned. The call as to whether the OSP has a board or not is not this. I remember during the formulation of the legislation, this subject matter came up. I don't want to mention names. He said, I don't need a board. I said, you don't have that call. It is not yours to determine. So that the framers of the acts said that, determined it wisely that the OSP needs a board. Talk about the OSP has finished employing its people. Senior staff members will still be employed. Mary, it's not a one-off thing, so it will happen. It cannot be the OSP's call until the law is actually
so, Sami, let's hear
amended.
from you briefly about the implications of the lack of board and the bigger issue that regardless of not having a board, you've been getting a lot of money, but you are not showing for it.
Okay, thank you once again. I think that I do not want to get drawn into the OSP's board matter. It's a subject that's too political, and I'm a public servant. Spare me that. But I want to talk about money. Because again, when they were seeking to abolish the office, one of the propaganda that they spread across, and almost all the media and the people bought into, was that so much money has been given to the OSP and there's nothing to show. I'm here to tell you that that's a big lie. But because the OSP also performs national security functions, that's why even during hearings of our budget and auditing of the OSP is not open to the public. So I'm unable to put out certain things. And if you go to the audit service, we are one of the few institutions that does not have any audit infractions since it was set up, or at least under the new Special Prosecutor, Kesia Jabin. No infraction. So our finances and the way we do things are always taken care of. But I want a broader picture so that people appreciate. I have these statistics, and these statistics, they are releases to anti-corruption bodies. So often in the media, they will hear OSP is allocated, let's say, 200 million. And in the eyes and the minds of the media, they think that OSP has 200 million to work. There's a difference between what has been budgeted for and what actually comes to you to work. So often the media confuses these things and they bundle it around and put it together and say, OSP has this amount, they have not done this. Let me give you, I'm putting together anti-corruption bodies in Ghana, SHRAJ, OSP, Attorney General. Because IOCO is under Attorney General, I cannot separate IOCO. So SHRAJ, Attorney General, OSP. in 2020, the monies of all these people were 319 or something million. In percentage-wise of Ghana's revenue, as shared to other sectors, it's about 0.70. I'm not going to go into it, but when you do 2020 up to 2024, the entire budget releases, not budget, that was given to Ghana to fight anti-corruption, it's about 2.6 billion Ghana cedis. We as a country, our recent survey shows that we lose almost $3 billion to corruption, which is roughly about 35 billion Ghana cedis. So what we are doing as a country is that we put only 2.6 billion cedis, Ghana cedis, into fighting corruption. And we lose 36 billion Ghana cedis. Who does that? Who does that? The money you are putting into corruption is so small, and yet you are leaking. If you are even able to put in 10 billion and you are able to stop the leakages, then you can have more money to do big push, to do this, any other thing you want to do. But as a country, we seem not to care about where we put in our monies. So other sectors will get, say, education, 12 billion. I'm not saying that they are not important, but if you're able to solve this leakage gap, and the anti-corruption bodies are well-resourced and they're able to fight it, they're going to save you more money so that your fiscal space, you have more money to use and to help Ghanaians. So I think that is what I want to draw attention. But often we put in the media, see so much money. Let me be honest with you. It's been a struggle at the OSP. And the men and women who are working there right now, as I'm here, a lot of them are on operations, seizing assets and the rest. Some of the things, in our half yearly, we tell you, some of the things, because they've not matured, we don't say. And often when you judge us and say we have not done anything, we get surprised, because I don't know whether it's because some of the investigations don't end up in prosecution. But as the research listed, they even left out so many cases that we have completed. It's not every case that we do that will end up in prosecution. And prosecution, something is here will tell you, it takes between 5 to 7 years. The average prosecutorial trial in Ghana. Sometimes when you're lucky, 3 to 5. Since Kisia Jabin took over in 2021, 2022, we have about 33 high-profile persons standing trial. Now, if you count the period, he's not even done 4 years, right? From 2022 to now, it's not 4 years. So even if Ghanaians expect that we should put people in jail, it has not ripened yet. It's like we just planted coconut and we expect to want to pluck a coconut tomorrow. We are impatient. And the same thing we have done with the Black Stars. We are always changing. We don't want things to blow in this full hole. I'm not a football fan, but forgive me.
Yeah, but the counter of that argument is that we change the non-performing coaches.
But sometimes what you call non-performing...
The research says that you have recovered in excess of 3
yeah, I can give you the statistics.
In excess of 3 billion, and you have prevented the loss of about 7.
If you just give me one, I can just give a simple example. So we put our successes in Epoch. Yeah, surely. We put our successes in Epoch. We take Martin Amidu's era. If Ghana OSP did not do anything in Martin Amidu's era, at least he did a corruption rigs that saved Ghana a lot of money. That's the Japa royalties deal. This was estimated at $1 billion. That's huge money. Because of the work he did, that contract was suspended, never came off. Let's come to Kisia Jabin. He's done a lot. There's this Ghana Health and LCB worldwide disinfection contract that we were losing nearly, it's about over 300 million Ghana cedis that we were just losing. And we blocked that contract. There's a Tema Oil refinery. We saved Tema Oil refinery. There is customs, what we call benchmark value, that allow customs officers on their own to be further discounting already discounted taxes that people are supposed to pay. And they are percentage-wise. Revenue, when we got Parliament to yank that law out, improved by about 300%. Now, if you do a yearly basis, it's a lot of money OSP has given to Ghana. Then we have the auction of vehicles. First, people were not paying the duty and taxes payable. That's why now people complain, I don't get auction car to buy. It's expensive. It's because of the work OSP did, because people were not paying the taxes on it. We have done SML, saved Ghana so much money. We've done the airport one, Evertex. We've saved Ghana so much money. These are the preventive things we do through what we call corruption risk. Then we have prosecutions. We have 7 convictions by plea bargain. Ghanaians say they want people in jail. Plea bargain is easier to get early. It doesn't mean that people won't go to jail. When the cases run its full course and the court is convinced that we have sufficient evidence, these people will be sent to prison.
All right. Do we have Professor Baole on the line? Hello, Prof.
Yes, yes, Samson. I can hear you.
The difficulties and the major difficulties that the OSP is facing. I want you to relate that to your work.
Okay. Yeah, so Samson, the conversation around anti-corruption and fighting corruption must be seen from 2 broad perspectives. Those of us who are citizens and wanting us to catch thieves, as it were, and those of the people who we are catching. In all the cases, it's important to note that how much outcome we get from those who are doing the catching must always take on board the things that we want to also protect, the rights of the people that we deal with when we are catching. And oftentimes, until you get involved or you are the one being investigated, you would often judge the OSP and such other anti-corruption institutions as we have done. So I think that the issue about, for example, the boards are important because for purposes of policy direction and all of that, boards are important. You want to be careful that the guys that are at the forefront doing the work are receiving inputs and policy direction. That's very important. The other thing that we've talked about has to do with the outcomes, whether we are considering those outcomes as outcomes of prevention or outcomes of jailing people. Ghanaians want to get a lot of outcomes on jailing people, but I think that more importantly, outcomes of prevention for me is much more important, and in many places that's what you get. So we got to prevent, and as part of that prevention, I think one of the things that maybe we haven't talked about a lot in this is the kind of education that we get the OSP to do. I was involved in a project where some of their officers were training university student leaders on anti-corruption and how to be ethical, and OSP, came around, was involved. Many times, that's the area that I think we need a lot more attention. So when we are not catching a lot of people, when we are not jailing a lot of people, I think a lot more impact we could measure will be the extent to which people hear about the OSP. And I was just doing a quick check on the OSP's social media handles, and I see the OSP, for example, on Twitter has just about 52,000 followers, and we are a country of millions. So how much engagement do we see there? How much engagement do we see on TikTok? How much engagement do we see? Because these are things that actually help us to be able to get the messages across and to prevent corruption and to make sure it doesn't happen. The other thing with challenges, and this is also across many jurisdictions, has to do with the extent to which the education that we have actually culminate into the fear that people express, or that will prevent people from wanting to engage in. And then the issue about whether or not people are happy to report corruption. And there's evidence that says that something. whistleblowing, for example, could actually lead to about 40% more discoveries than what external audit would discover. It will lead to about 40% more discoveries in wrongdoing than what internal audits could discover, and even what internal systems of controls can discover. How much of that are we promoting? And so maybe and forgive me for today, a lot of stress from, I don't know what happened to me, but just so we are able to judge OSP on a lot more outcomes, maybe a lot more on very, very easy things that, if you like, a low-hanging fruit that we can. How much of school children, kids are we engaging? How many civil servants are we engaging? How many civil servants, for example, get to take a test, every year to get them oriented on anti-corruption, what to do when they have challenges, when they see wrongdoing happening, how do they report that, and all of that, how mass market women get involved, and all of that. And as I say, I know that they do some things because they got engaged with us, but a lot more of those, for me, would also be very, very important in our fight against corruption. Let me end here. Thank you.
There's something I heard the SP mention before, and mention it in a way that's different from how I've heard everybody else talk about it. I'm a lawyer. I've been in the courts to deal with cases about land, where the land is said to be a gift to somebody. In our law, to indicate that that gift was a valid gift to you by a person who was alive and gave the gift to you, you must show proof that you did aseda after they gave you the gift. Aseda, you must have thanked them by presenting something to thank them. If you were bereaved and you had to invite some important people, you have to carry schnapp and sometimes add money in an envelope to the people you are inviting to come and mourn with you. So what kind of education do we hope to give to the children under this kind of culture? So please put your hand up if you have a question, if you have a contribution. We need you to introduce yourself briefly, and please speak in a minute. I see Reverend Fred Digbe's hand up already.
To understand what even the employees go through.
Thank you. But Doc, did you say as their lawyer?
No, I said
a lawyer.
Yes, as a lawyer.
Things that I've become aware of.
Things that you are aware of.
Death
sure.
situations.
Yeah.
Okay. But can I ask you a small question?
Yes.
When the special prosecutor took the podium and spoke, did he leave anything on your mind? Did he sound like he was tired and he didn't care if he was kicked out of the office or the office was collapsed?
He sounded like it. He said, my days are numbered. He's a public servant. Sami also said the same thing. They are public servants. So definitely, that's why I'm asking this question. Because if you're only trying to earn your daily bread, and you're not the only institution supposed to do that, but for some reason, you are under attack, and you have other options. These are professionals. They have other options. They have their life to lead and their children to educate. You may find, apart from singing that Anoma song, you may find other things to do. So if we intentionally make their lives difficult, including the threat I'm asking about, they may pull off.
Okay.
And who knows? Who wants
Thank
to do
you.
it?
Yes, the gentleman. Please introduce yourself quickly and let's hear your contribution or question.
Okay, good morning, good afternoon. My name is Bilal Malamsani from Waldorf Women in Law and Development in Africa. I want to find out from the representative from the OSP. I remember very well when the office was about to start, they also made mention of tracking data, tracking people's financial information. And I think even when you go to other countries, that is what they use to track and fight corruption. Are we there? And then there was also issue about naming and shaming. It was one of the key strategies that was proposed to be adopted by OSP to tackle corruption. What is the status? How has it been? Thank you.
Thank you. Please, to the lady right, on your right.
Thank you. My name is Mavis, and I'm a law student. I recently made some observations. That's why I'm here to ask a few questions. Okay, so I want to ask the OSP how he responds to accusations that some arrests are politically motivated. And as one of the representatives said, there are 33 high-profile cases standing trial since Mr. Kisi became the OSP. And it's been 5 years and none of the cases have matured. And he alluded to a coconut being planted. So would you say that the OSP is merely stalling these cases till he leaves power because he has barely 3 years left to go? And this is making Ghanaians doubt the credibility of the OSP. And also, what steps are being taken to prevent pre-trial publicity from prejudicing suspects' right to a fair trial? Because currently we see that there are high-profile cases where the media merely slanders all these people and making it look like they have been through trial and then they are being tagged as criminals without being given a fair trial, which is against their rights.
Two key important questions. We take one more. We'll come for a second round. We take one more from here. Please bring it to the front. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Maoli Dake, and I'm a senior advisor with Merton and Everett. I call myself a citizen activist. Just quickly to the point about the media engagement by prosecuting agencies. I do think that, on the contrary, I do think that we need more of those. In your opening remark, you talked about how the media landscape is dominated by commercial business media. And we all know that they have huge platform. By the time they come from court, they have 10 lawyers on every single platform speaking for them. So I think that the OSP has actually set a golden standard where they provide the information to the public. They may not necessarily have to be doing the back and forth, but they have, among all the institutions, I think they've done better in terms of informing the public. We cannot concede the space to those who are doing us in to say that they shouldn't explain to the public. So I think that we need to see more of those from the agencies. And briefly, I do think that my brother, Senano, is making too much of an excuse for the OSP. The bottom line is, we do want to see results. And it is true, those of us who work in the sector, we know that these cases, it takes a long time, even in the US, where they have all the resources and the sophistication in terms of intelligence and institutional capacity. It takes about 2 years for some of these criminal cases to be completed. So we do understand that. But we can also judge them based on the process, all right? And I will say that they have done well based on what we know. Corruption fights back. So if anybody is going to sit at OSP or as a friend of OSP to be making excuses about people fighting back, then you don't understand your business, because corruption always fights back and they will always fight back. So despite that, we still want to see results.
Okay.
So that's all I would say. But overall, I will commend the OSP. I think that in the contest, they've shown leadership, they've shown transparency, they've shown efficiency and competence. So I support them.
I
and
needed you to explain one small point you made. You said when they are back from court, they have 10 lawyers speaking. Who do you refer to?
I'm talking about those
accused persons.
The accused persons. Okay. They have more platform. I'm sure you know they are already, because they are commercial platforms. If I'm charged for stealing 10 million, 100 million, the media people are also interested in getting a share of that. So, you know, we see the evening shows. If there's a case, they have spokespersons on all the platforms. OSP cannot even compete with that. How much do they have?
Okay.
How many spokespersons can they afford to even send on those platforms? So they have more space.
Thank you, Maoli.
Than the
so
OSP.
The questions are largely directed to you, OSP. So quickly, I would need you to be as brief as you can in responding to them, from Reverend Dr. Fred Digbe's, Bilal, the student, and Maoli.
Thank you very much. I think to a large extent, the Mavis question has been taken care by my brother from another mother. We do fight a lot, so don't think
only
that
one part.
Yes.
About pre-trial publicity that prejudices.
Yes, I think I'm happy a law student has asked this question, because I've had certain comments from the law school and other things based on what some lecturers say, also based on a lack of understanding. I mean, I'm a lecturer. I mean, so I know sometimes some of the biases that translate into the rooms where we are teaching. OSP does not prejudice any case. What OSP does is that when you are formally charged and placed before court, we will put in the media what it is that you have been charged with and why we have put you before court. And then we have something we call a mark shot, where we will put the mark shot out. The mark shot is the same as media people always also putting you out when you're coming from court, handcuffed and all that. It doesn't mean that we are saying you are guilty. It means that we are identifying you that this is what you do. Sometimes people in the public, when they even see you, are able to bring further evidence to us. So I don't think it's about...
Sorry, you had press conferences about Ken Oforiatta while you had not charged him. So when you say you put information out when you have charged, I think people will have questions about that.
Yeah, but Oforiatta is a distinct case. It's a distinct case because when you make it impossible for us to do an investigation and all that, we also, as law enforcement, people forget that the OSP is first a law enforcement agency before a prosecutorial office. That's the difference. So when so as a law enforcement agency, when you're making it hard for us to get you, then we have to tell the public. Remember, we have come to public only to tell the public that we have declared him wanted and give reasons why we have declared him wanted on the basis that 2 or 3 things. He's not been able to directly produce to us any medical results. That indicates that he's going through certain health process. The only thing that we had seen were things he had put in the media or to whom it may concern later that the lawyers may bring to our office, but nothing directly from a hospital signed by the doctor attending to him. I don't mean a medical consultant. I mean the doctor attending to him. In abroad, there's a difference. You can get a medical consultant who will be telling people about your condition and all that. That's different from the one attending to you. And we were insisting that we need something from, and 2, we needed a flight risk report from him. A flight risk report simply shows that you are somebody who is unable to fly. Why? Because OSP, we had intelligence that he was flying out in and out of America. And I think with time, most of you have come to know those information. But at that time, we didn't have.
Since you are speaking to her questions, then you take her second question, the first question rather, which is about deliberately stalling some of the cases because you have just 3 years. He's got 3 years to go out.
I think that is not true. It's also born out of understanding. I'll use one case that's ongoing, Mustafa Hamid. People have accused us, including he and his lawyers and all that we are stalling the case. But that's not so. So we have charged you, we place you before court. Then we are there. Then 2 of the people you are standing trial with comes and begs us and says that we want to speak the truth. Remember, OSP did not go to them. There's a difference between turning someone around, like AG did in one of the cases where you're able to turn it around. We didn't turn them around. They willingly walked into our office and said that I will now confess. And so we make you put out your statement and all that. And we look at what you have to tell us, and we think it's substantial. We accept it and say, then you become a prosecution witness. The law is that once we've accepted 2 people and taken them out, we must file the charges afresh. Now, when we refile the charges afresh, your plea has to be taken afresh. It is not an OSP problem. It is the law. You, one breath, you want us to follow the law. Another breath, you don't want us to follow the law. It doesn't work. Then we do that for you. It doesn't mean that we are stalling. It simply means that we are. Then in another case, we are doing a parallel financial investigation, which warrants that we go into your assets. And when we are doing that, you say, we are doing this, we are doing. So sometimes we have to understand the case in their court. Some of the cases we can entirely withdraw because we have found fresh evidence and other thing. We just want to pad it up. It doesn't mean we are stalling. OSP doesn't stall any. In fact, we are one of the agencies that have a quick turnaround on our cases. If you check the cases we have placed before court, it's a quick turnaround. But investigations sometimes take a while.
All right. So to Bilal and Dr. Digbe.
Yes. The last time I went out to say the threats that we face, it became a whole media, and especially some of the people that I know who should have known better were blowing out of proportion because they thought that it could have a backlash on me and I was lying. So some friends in the media were very happy and highlighting as if I had said something which was not true. We do face threats.
So that's one.
And let me repeat.
Sami, that one, for example, this is what I did when I spoke about it on my show. When I mentioned it on my show, because I can't show the footage to the public, I showed it to my panelists. So my panelists saw the footage where he came under siege by a truckload of police officers while he was in his vehicle in the middle of the road, and they were attempting to arrest him. So I showed it to my panelists, so they know and can speak to and confirm that what I'm saying is actually true. But I couldn't show that footage to the whole public because there were national security interventions that resolved the matter. Please go on.
Yeah, so Reverend, some of the things we can't say it. That's why I cannot tell you, but we do face it. And one of the reasons why we protect our staff. That's why we're unhappy when there was an alleged leakage from OSP where names of staff had come out and all that, because it's hard for you to know an OSP staff, I'm sure. It's not that simple. That's why we say that I'm the one talking or whatever. It's not because because we are protecting a lot of our staff. We don't want the public to know them because they do undercover work and all that. So we do face threats, which is that the people you are investigating themselves are very powerful. They have resources, right? And then also politicians. You must know that nobody wants to go down. I told you that the 12 years is a big problem for people. So I'm even saying that if Ghana could revise it and make it 5 to 10, so that people will tone down on trying to swallow us. No, not that we are going back. I mean, across the continent, okay, 5
Sami,
to 10.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Adam should have left us at a point. So I'd like him to make a quick comment before I come to my last round of questions and contributions.
Yeah. And I think that, I mean, each of the issues going on, sometimes a few of us may know the extent of the threat. Even some say it's not seeing everything. None of us is seeing anything. And so you should understand our posture. The things we know, we cannot speak to. And when you see them talking this way, sometimes I tell myself, we probably need a special unit for people in this space. I'm sure something you understand what I'm saying, in terms of helping them, because what they go through on a daily basis, psychologically. Now, my brother Mauli, I think you missed the substance of my point. And I find that happening many times on radio and TV platforms, where people compare the OSP, which is a very recent institution, and they talk about it as if it existed for 10 years, 20 years, like the other institutions. The substantive point is not about the attacks on them. It's the fact that they had a full complement of their staff by the end of 2023. the year 2024, to all extents and purposes, was now used to train this staff to understand what is their role, what should be the practices, how do they go about things. If you take 2024, even half of it away, how much time have they really had to function properly? And that's the point I'm making. Let's not compare them to the AGs, the YOKOs, the FICs. And if you understand that, you would be much more cautious in how you interpret what they've been able to achieve. And I think that is substantive. Thank you.
The fact that they are now building, and that YOKO has long built its institution with funding and all of that, it's no excuse for the cases that they have taken on for us to see some, like the public would say, real and fast action.
But they have done that. So that's how come, even if you compare them with other institutions currently, you find that they are doing very well, comparatively. So I think that when we're doing the comparisons, we should ask, so how has YOKO performed? How has, in relation to OSP, before we draw the conclusion that, you know, they are not performing, they have done nothing.
But we set the OSP up because YOKO we couldn't trust was dysfunctional. The AG's office we couldn't trust. The others we said they were not performing. So why should we compare their output with the others that we have departed?
I think Sami's question that probably at the beginning we should have defined the building phase. You see, what I'm saying is this. You can't build on nothing. You can't begin to get results from nothing. What was the period determined for them to have established, so that then after that we know that if we are talking about they've performed or not performed, it is fair. But at the moment, we've not treated them that fairly because we've tended to say, oh, they've been around for 8 years, they've not done this, they've done that. I think that's unfair to them, and there are people there, and that's important.
So there was the last question I need to answer. I didn't answer that question, and it had to do with asset. You were talking about lifestyle and asset, yeah. Like they were saying, you know, 2023 when we had our staff, currently we have a project ongoing sponsored by the British government with Basel Institute of Governance, where they are training our people on asset recovery. So it's an ongoing, it's like a 3-year program. So we are getting these support right now. And that's why I agree with them that Ghanaians have been a bit unfair with us, because from 2023 to now, you can see a lot of progress. And I just said that we have 33 cases before, and these are not small cases. People think, look at SML alone. It's not just Kenneth Foriata. We have many important people standing trial, from Kenneth Damore to the owner of SML. There are a lot of people. Look at the Mustafa Hamid case. It's a lot of people. There's an NDA, there's PPA. There's so many cases that we've been able to complete in record time because we now have some resources. And so people will see the results, but I'm just saying that it takes a while, and we're impatient. So if we are patient enough, we'll see the OSP from 2026.
People don't have that much patience for you. If you see, if you see what the Attorney General is going through now, you would understand about oral.
That's true.
Now the President has to consistently tell all of us to be patient with the Attorney General. So the hands I got was one, starting with you, 1, 2. There was a third and a fourth. Okay, there's a lady, 5, and that ends it. Thank you.
So thank you for the opportunity. My name is Ahmed Anderson. I'm from Ahmadiyya Muslim Mission, but I came here through Kodeo. Madam Linda, in her presentation, I think in response to some of the questions, spoke about collaboration between agencies that fight corruption. Which agencies are represented on the board? Now, there's an argument about whether the board is even relevant at this point in time or not. I can understand that. But under the circumstances, I think I will be on the side of those who want to say that the board must be constituted. And therefore, if there isn't any other person or body which will draw the attention of the powers that be, I want this forum to take it upon ourselves to point it out to those who need to ensure that the board comes in place, because I believe that it will definitely help the office of the Special Prosecutor.
So like Adam, do you believe that that is deliberate marginalization of the office?
We might not have any other reason to say so, but it is obvious that if they don't want, but a small question to the OSP. I want to say, even though there seems to be the employment of staff that they want or they need. But the small question is, do they have the requisite expertise that they actually need in prosecuting their agenda?
Thank you.
That might be a setback.
Thank you, Ahmed. Yes.
Good afternoon. My name is Osu Apia from Crusaders of Change, Ghana. I just want to amount of money we are losing, and it stated that over $3 billion amount of money we are losing, and it stated that over $3 billion annually, which was reported by Graphic Online. That was on the 10th December, and then Ghanaian Times on 2nd July. So I just want to say that China has a population of over 1.4.
That after all this difficult thinking, writing, going up and down, people are also chasing you because they don't want to go to prison because of the money they have stolen. We need to protect them mentally, not only physically. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes.
Hello, my name is Joseph Bruni. I'm also a student. Just to make a bit of a comment on our brother's point, I think using China as an example for law and order in our setting might be a bit too far because of the sort of governments they run and how they go about giving their judgments and whatnot. But my question has to do, or my question in the form of suggestion has to do with the communication issues that Mr. Samuel Apia has been speaking about. I think the public is generally ill-informed about what exactly the office of the OSP is supposed to do. What are the CSOs or other bodies such as the NCC, among others, doing to increase the level of public education on what exactly the role of the OSP is on, in order for us to know the boundaries? I think
that it's a struggle not just for the OSP's office and their staff, but for the entire Ghanaian citizenry. Every day you wake up and you hear the news and the figures, and your heart breaks. And it's getting to a point where every Ghanaian is walking very angry. In fact, most are intentional about avoiding the news and disconnecting with the corruption conversations just to protect their mental health. But listening to you today, Mr. Daku, talk about a summary of some of your achievements, I am hopeful. But I'm wondering that even in all of the chaos and the noise, how can you package the good parts, the progress, so that it drowns the noise a little, it gives the Ghanaian citizens some hope and calms our emotions a lot more than, it is currently. Also on the question of accountability, you found a way to explain of every single criticism that has come at you today. But the point is that civil society, you have everybody's, at least most Ghanaians' support. But then that love will still have to come with some form of accountability. At what point would you admit that maybe we are not as effective as we would have wanted to be? And that also goes to Mary and Linda, that for us as CSOs, even as we support them, how strongly can we objectively still hold them accountable?
Thank you very much, Safia. So there are two questions, her question and that of Ahmed, who asked whether you have the requisite expertise. Two questions. Everybody else was making contributions. Quickly.
Yes, thank you. When it comes to expertise, I think we have one of the best staff in terms of the areas where we are operating. When it comes to prosecution, we've gotten the best of the best in our office. But one of the problems we noticed was this whole issue about wanting to scrap the office and blah, blah. Make sure that some of them want career progression and they don't want to join an institution where there's uncertainty. So that has affected us in the way where we could have built more capacity when it comes to prosecution. But in terms of investigation, asset recovery, we have one of the best people. They do understand financial investigations, and there's a continuous training for them. As I said, they've suddenly become old. And I'm getting gray hair. You see. So, yes, we go through a lot, but it's for Mother Ghana.
As for the gray hair, I can see. Even though I think I think you're older than my friend Oliver Bakker. Have you seen his hair? He's all grey. All right.
Okay, so on what civil society and other actors are doing to support the OSP in ensuring that people get to understand exactly the object of the office and its functionality. I'm happy to say that we have done so with our limited resources jointly, but under the paired activity, the GACC is currently developing a manual, a sort of what we call the ABCs, breaking down the law into bits and pieces, and then also putting it in various formats to ensure that the education, sensitization, and awareness raising agenda is prosecuted across the country. These are limited interventions, and I'm happy to also say that it's been done collaboratively with the office. And so whatever the resources for the project would cover, then the SP can take it on and then also work with others. The role of the NCC here is very significant. NCCE is located everywhere across this country, and so whatever we do, we as civil society have jointly worked with them in ensuring that we raise awareness across the country, getting people to understand why it is important to fight corruption. And people are beginning to catch the message, and that's why you hear a lot of people making reports and doing a lot of things, and the expectations and anxiety about this fight is that high. And let me add that the SP's office should not be too worried that we come at them. It is for good purpose. We cannot, because we supported, and again, it was mentioned this morning by Kojo that we supported in drafting even the law. We went through the processes, through all of it to get the law passed. And so we cannot be detractors of such an office. But then we also want to say that if things are not going well, we are the best people who would say it. Right. And then we expect that when that happens, the SP will take it in good faith and work at it, because it is the solutions we want to see. The people of Ghana, as you indicated, have for a long time seen that nothing is happening. And so we wanted something else that will ensure that we see corruption being fought gidi, 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 and butu, butu, butu. That's why the president is now becoming a mediating advocate for all of us with oral, because we thought that now oral is going. That closing he presented, and when he said it is time, I think he didn't say it like that, but that's what he implied, that we need to do more. Civil society needs to be more pronounced. Civil society needs to be out there, engaging, being more militant. Civil society needs to, and I sat there reflecting in our space where the spirit of voluntarism and mobilizing the masses is gone so down. How do we do this? But I think it is important. He believes that we have not supported this cause enough, even though we have a different perspective to share. But I agree that we need to do more. The Kenya Gen Z actions didn't come about because they sat aloof. We have tried. In the case of the Auditor General, we tried in the past, and we made some significant gains. And so for me, it was a charge. Like the song says, a charge to keep we have, and an anti-corruption agenda to prosecute. And for civil society, our voices cannot be left unheard.
He said that the withdrawal of the bill to repeal the office has not ended the attempt to collapse the office.
It hasn't, and we know that. And so that is why the agenda must be prosecuted even more. And within the space of this intervention, again, we have some opportunity to continue to coordinate, collaborate, and jointly take up some actions. And I believe the civil society coalition that was established, which you are part of, we need to take up this agenda again. Because we've been in spaces where this particular agenda has been spoken to. People are not convinced at all that what we are saying is what should be.
All right.
And they do that based on the argument that it's not a constitutional thing to do and others.
Right.
And they continue to talk about it. So we must also continue to be vigilant and also shape our advocacy and campaigns
Right.
to ensure that we resist every distraction on the agenda of
Professor
fighting
Justice
corruption.
Baole, let's have your final comments as consultants on what has transpired today on this national dialogue on the Office of the Special Prosecutor, and then Linda will finally conclude it.
Yes, Samson, thank you very much. I want to apologize to you and the audience today for my very bad day. And so the final point that I will make is a call to all of us to play our individual parts, first and foremost, by refraining from what we all condemn and to urge others to do same. I would defer the closing remarks to Linda, who has done a phenomenal job today. Thank you so much.
Hello. So thank you, Prof. Baole, for your contributions today. You've been amazing. I know what went wrong, but you've been fine. So then, as you know, one of the objectives of today's engagement was also to validate the reflection paper. That we have shared the insight with you. And from sitting here and hearing from all of you, the general consensus is that the OSP has not done badly. That is one. The second is that the OSP can do more. The third is that the OSP can be more effective than currently they are doing. And that for the ordinary Ghanaian, effectiveness goes beyond recoveries through plea bargaining, goes beyond assets recovered and billions and all that. They want to see some people in jail, and it's their right. That they cannot do it all by themselves. It requires collaboration. It requires some level of capacity development, capacity enhancement. And for me, anytime I talk about capacity enhancement, I look beyond the OSP. I also look at the judiciary and other stakeholders and the understanding of the legislation that we actually put in place to help us deal with the issue of corruption. And also to say that, as Samson said at some point, then we actually had an independent organization with prosecutorial powers just because we had not seen results in the past. So OSP, we would not hold the fort, we would not only be praising the OSP all the time. We have to tell them, as Mary rightly said, civil society also has a responsibility to hold the SP to account. But then still I end disagreeing with Mary that the OSP does not need a board. OSP needs a board. Attorney General, President Mahama, the OSP needs a board because the functions of the board outlined in the legislation are enormous, and the board has to be in place. One day we'll hold them accountable.
Because you don't want to go through the process. The Auditor General in 2025 told us about the fact that he was recovering 10 million Ghana cedis from about 2,000 civil servants who have collected money that did not belong to them. And he was expecting to take an extra 150 million from about 53,000 civil servants. Money has come into your account. It doesn't belong to you. You take it and chop. Why? That's corruption. So thank you also very much. Thank you to Samuel Apiadako, Director of Strategy, Research and Communications at the OSP, Professor Justice Baole, University of Ghana Business School, Mrs. Linda Ofori-Kwafo, Team Leader, Governance and Stability, Adam Smith International, the Honorable Edem Senanu, Chairperson, African Union Advisory Board Against Corruption. We also say thank you to Mrs. Mary Awalana Ada, Exeganda, Mrs. Sheila Masindi,
conversation does not end here. This evening we are on PM Express Live on Joy News to continue the conversation online. We are also going to the regions as well. So we don't want the conversation to just be centered here in Accra. So in the next couple of weeks, we are going with OSP and the consultant to also engage at the regional level. So please, those at the region, just get ready for us. We want to, yes. We would like to take the conversation to the regions at the region. Kofi Bentel is here. Thank you, Kofi. So we'll take the conversation to the regions, get ready for us. And then the paper will also be published as well. The consultants will take the feedback. So you are also, we are going to share it. Just let us know if you have any other feedback. We'll share it with them, and we'll have it published on our website as well. So we'd like to bring the conversation here. Please join us on Newsfile, PM Express this evening with Evans Mensah. Now I said Newsfile, maybe something. I'm pushing for us to have continued the conversation on Newsfile again. So thank you very much and have a good afternoon. And let's clap for ourselves because we have stayed till now. Thank you.